You guys know why we're here. It's the March Madness preview. Cue the music.
Dun 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 dun. Dun da da da. Da 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 da. Da da.
That was close. I like it. Let's do it. I'm excited.
All
That's
right.
probably the
Welcome
dumbest
everyone
intro we've
back
ever
to the
done.
Two Pointers podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm excited. I'm
And
just kidding. I'm
this is
Trevor.
where we do our probably like outside of like maybe trivia finals or NBA draft previews or something. This is just like one of the best podcasts that we have every year. It's March. The NCAA tournament starts, well, technically Tuesday. So before this comes out with the first 4 games, but Thursday, which means I'm not getting any real work done this week. I'm going to be focusing on basketball and only basketball. And we're here to help you do well in your tournament challenge pools or
hurt you.
Yeah, one of
We'll
those.
see.
But Trevor, this is like honestly the best. Like getting to mid-March, I have been waiting for this for several. I've been anticipating this for several weeks, and I'm just like I was itching to get there. Like the tail end of the college basketball season, to me, always seems to drag on a little bit too long because you can see it on the horizon and you want to get there, but it just takes a while to like hit that point. But now we're here. The first four of the first NCAA tournament teams will play tomorrow night, survive and advance style. And before that, we're going to let everybody know what our picks are.
And before that, we're going to make sure we mention that we want you guys to play along. We have an ESPN bracket challenge open. Please join. The link will be in the bottom of this episode. This will go out either late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. It'll be all over Twitter at 2Pointers, TikTok, Instagram at the 2Pointers Podcast, Facebook.com/the 2Pointers Podcast, and I'll probably even find a way to put it on the website. It's everywhere. This is the place. Join it. I think Josh even threw the motto up as we think we know what we're doing or something like that. It's up there. You'll see it. It's the full name, the 2Pointers Podcast. Don't get confused with last year's. Next year we'll name it with a year. But yeah, please join it. The winner, the reason
Follow
I'm
the
bringing it
link
up,
on Twitter.
yeah, for wherever you get it. Twitter, yeah, wherever it needs to be. It's actually at the bottom of this too, which is amazing. But the whole reason we want you to play, the winner gets a free 2Pointers Podcast t-shirt. And Josh, tell him what the other big thing is.
And the winner also gets to be a guest on a future 2Pointers Podcast to discuss whatever basketball topic you so desire to bring up. I think our resident Thunder fan Grayson wants to. Well, no, he wanted to talk about college basketball because he wanted to rip Clemson, I believe, for continuing on with head coach Brownell. But
yeah, he wanted to give him his exit interview live and on recording. So
Grayson's
exciting stuff.
He's a little fired up about Clemson basketball, but
look,
we'll see. We'll see.
Someone out there wants to talk about San Francisco basketball. If they want to talk about the Knicks, they want to please don't do the Knicks. If they want to talk about the Warriors, if they want to talk about the FIBA, we'll figure out a FIBA thing. We'll get it figured out. But we are here to talk about it. We will have you on to do that. The shirt will also be ordered as soon as the national championship concludes. That Tuesday, we'll get the results of the brackets. Are you ready? I'm ready. This is like
ready as I'm gonna be.
Yeah, this is the first time in like 5 years where I was standing up the entire selection Sunday.
Wow.
Like I wasn't taking notes. Like I just stood there and I just was just like every little thing that changed and everything I'm in. I'm jacked. Let's do it. Gonzaga, Georgia State. We're gonna preface this by saying last year was a little confusing.
Jumping right in.
Yeah, we are, right? We're going right into the West. Let's make this clear. We're going by region. So the region last year, we did it last year where we basically just went down the ESPN bracket, and it was very confusing. So we're going to give you guys all the way through the Elite Eight, making a Final Four pick for each West, South, Midwest, and East bracket or section of the bracket. So Josh, without further ado, Gonzaga and Georgia State.
Yeah, it's the number one overall against, I guess, the lowest seed in the tournament in the Georgia State Panthers. So I think that's the idea behind these matchups, right? Georgia State 18-10 champions of I don't even remember what conference they're from, Trevor.
Oh, that's bad.
No offense to Georgia State.
Nope.
No, I'm not going to be controversial. I have Gonzaga winning the game. We're not going to have. There's going to be no Ron Hunter Sr. falling off a chair. No 40-foot threes for the win. Do you remember what I'm referencing?
R.J. Hunter.
Yeah, who played
Yeah,
at Georgia State.
that's right, R.J.
Yeah.
Hunter.
There's going to be none of that this time around for the Georgia State Panthers. The Bulldogs will move on there.
Yeah, let's just go. Let's just go with Gonzaga and roll. I will say this is not going to be the most exciting one that Paolo Uggetti, and people don't know who I'm talking about probably. If they do, shout out to them. Every year, Paolo Uggetti from ESPN live tweets a 1 through 16 matchup. He'll pick one of the four. Funny enough, the year that he did it for the Virginia UMBC year, he didn't pick that one, but he live tweets one of the four, and it's my favorite thing of college basketball opening weekend. No joke. I literally I don't watch the game. I just watch his Twitter feed. It is hysterical. So please follow him on Twitter, and please follow whatever 116 he picks. My guess, it's probably not this one. Shout out to Georgia State, but Gonzaga is moving on for both of us.
So now let's make it more difficult, because then you have 8-9, which is the most even that you get in the first round of the tournament. Got the Boise State Broncos and the Memphis Tigers.
I want to know where you are, because I'm not going to lie to you. This was probably the third hardest one for me to pick.
Yeah, this is difficult because the teams are so close together.
What's crazy is they're not. They are, but they're not. Like, there's a lot of things we're going to spend a couple minutes on this one, because like I struggled heavily, and I want to know where you lean so I can talk myself through mine.
So I'm really in this situation just going with who has been hot lately, and I know that Boise State won the Mountain West Conference. I think it's a little questionable that they're at the 8th seed, having won the Mountain West, and you have other Mountain West teams that are a little higher.
We'll talk about that.
Wise. But I'm going with Memphis. I think they've looked good in some big games recently, and I think that they have. If they come out shooting well, which I think they're going to be fired up, I think they're going to. That they can reel off the win against Boise State.
I want you to answer something for me. Who was one of my 3 biggest dark horses going into the season?
Memphis.
I'm picking Boise State, and I'll tell you why. I just wanted you to hear my thought process out loud.
Turning it back.
Two full reasons. All jokes aside, Boise State, one of a top 20 defense in the country. They just suffocate you. Fine, right? I like defensive teams in the tournament. I've made that clear last year, except for Baylor. I missed on Baylor. I do, however, the counterpart before I say anything is Memphis is holding their opponents since January 20th to 38% from the field. That is stellar. They've played Houston in that time frame twice. However, and I do feel bad betting against Penny Hardaway, but I don't like how young they are and how inexperienced they are. They make a lot of mistakes. They turn the ball over. They don't make the right pass. They're really inefficient from 3. There's too many things in an 8-9 where something has to convince me. And unfortunately, Penny Hardaway, unless they're playing 6-on-5, like if Penny's on the floor leading the team, it's Memphis, right? But unfortunately, Boise State just plays such tough defense. It's such a tough Mountain West, underrated Mountain West this year. I have to go with Boise State.
I don't know if it's underrated. They landed a lot of teams in. But
they did. Underrated in the sense that they, coming into the year, did not expect to be that good. And they did. Boise State played out completely of their expectations. So just for a couple of sheer small factors, there was like a tipping scale there for me. Unfortunately for Memphis, Boise State moves on for me.
All right. Now it's getting down to what I think is an intriguing matchup.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm not going to – so the next matchup, 5-12, the UConn Huskies, number 5, and the number 12 New Mexico State Aggies. I'm not picking the upset here, but I think there's upset potential. I'm not picking the upset because I'm very high on this UConn team this year. I think that this is one of the best teams UConn's had in a long time. They had kind of started to drift under the radar, and they'd started to disappear. You're looking at a UConn team that's top 20 in BPI. They score very efficiently. They're not a great shooting team, but the amount of rebounds they grab, and being from a guy who grew up kind of on watching the Roy Williams offensive style, which is put it up there and go get the board and put it back. I've seen it work, and I think this UConn team can make that work. I think they will beat New Mexico State after coming out of a very strong Big East. Now, the reason that I say there's upset potential, New Mexico State is 26-6, which is an incredibly impressive record. And they do it because they have two tall guards who score a lot of points.
And rebound a lot.
Huge.
56 percentile. 56 percentile, those two guards rebound.
It's something to keep an eye on. UConn might be given a bit of a scare. I don't think they'll lose it, but I think you can see, I foresee New Mexico State giving them a run.
So UConn makes me nervous because they're a team that's made those 7, 8, 9 seed runs before. I get it. And then being a 5, you're like, they make me nervous for that reason because they could lose in the first round, obviously. New Mexico State matches them in a lot of categories. Like you mentioned, the rebounding thing, and that's why I'm glad we at least talked about it. I'll get my pick out of the way. UConn does move on. I do agree with you. I think it's kind of close. I also, unfortunately, though, for New Mexico State, I don't like their resume up until that point. Their conference is relatively... They were able to take care of their conference pretty handily. Their only impressive wins were Davidson by 12 and Washington State by 3. But no, they do out-rebound the heck out of people. Their guards, like I said, rebound at a 56 percentile rate. I mean, that's just unfathomable. And UConn rebounds even better. So I think if it comes down to small little notches like that, UConn has the edge, who played a tougher schedule, more ready for this matchup. I think UConn moves on.
So let's keep it interesting for Thursday night games and go down to the 4-13, Arkansas Razorbacks and Vermont Catamounts. Before I say anything about who's going to win, this game is going to be a scoring clinic. It's going to be a show. I wouldn't be shocked if one of the teams hit 100. Because these teams score fast, play fast, and score efficiently. Both of them.
What's making me nervous about this so far is you and I are almost on the same page about everything. And I know this is going to get turned on its head eventually. I get it. Mm-hmm. I think this is where it turns on its head, though. Arkansas has this point where they're like, everyone got on the train. They were like, you had Seth Greenberg, you had Jay Billis, like, watch out for Arkansas. They're a scary Final Four team. Up, on Cameron, night, on Coach K's night, they were talking about it like pregame for 8 hours. And I'm not one to jump on a train and then like jump back off. Like I was like, this Arkansas team is really good. They're just not the best team in the SEC. I wasn't like, they're not going to run away with the competition. However, I think of all the 13 seeds, this is worst case scenario if you're an Arkansas fan.
I don't understand why Vermont is a 13 seed, quite frankly.
I don't care where
I feel like this is a bit unfair to Arkansas.
They score on the same level of Arkansas minus 1 point. Mm-hmm. But they hold their opponents by almost 10 points less. They basically just smother you on defense, and then they just absolutely they're very Wyoming-esque. Wyoming was my coming into the tournament. We were talking to Jim last week, and I was really big on Wyoming. I think they're really, really good. Vermont's another one, right? Vermont's the Wyoming of the East for me. They're just really good. They just do everything right, and they're just one of those teams you watch and you're like, yes, how are they a 13 seed? But what could they do against a team like Arkansas in the middle of the season? What could they have done 2 months ago against Arkansas when Arkansas was starting to get hot? So I have the Catamounts.
So yeah, we are going to split in this spot. I understand where everybody thinks that this is a upset potential. I saw it some last year when they talked about Arkansas getting upset. I think this Arkansas team has proved it a bit too much on the big situations that they can get it done. They're 4-1 against top 25 teams. There's a lot of experience from this team, a lot of the same players that have come back from last year's team that was so good. I think Arkansas is going to grind them down. I think it's going to be an entertaining game, but I don't think the Razorbacks are going. I don't think this is a good matchup. I think Vermont should be ranked higher. Should have been, frankly, for them, should have been given an easier matchup in the first round. But I'm going to have the Razorbacks move on for now.
if you're Vermont, I do feel bad for you. This is also the 9:20 game, so people are going to be kind of burnt, but they're going to be like tired going into the final matchup. I
I'll be
think a lot of
watching.
people, I'll be watching too, but like a lot of people are going to quote miss this one or be like, oh my gosh, like, but it's going to be probably the most exciting game of the day. I agree with you. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a
I
bloodbath.
think everybody's going to be following on their phones at first to see if it's interesting. If Vermont gives them the run that we think they will, I think everybody's going to be watching and talking about this one come the morning of Friday. But
So I'll end with this because we spent a lot more time on this than I actually thought we did, or would have, especially disagreeing. Vermont is in the top 20 in efficiency field goal percentage and turnover percentage, which in a high scoring game, you have to be efficient and you have to hold on to the ball. Period. That's what is the swinger for
I
me.
think I read, was reading Jay Billis previewing the NCAA tournament this morning. And I think Billis, the stat that stuck out to me is before adjusting for competition, Vermont ranks first in the country in offensive efficiency.
Correct.
After adjusting for competition, they are 12th in the country in offensive efficiency.
Which is still stupid.
It's
Like
insane.
stupid high. All right,
Tough matchup for Vermont.
let's roll into my favorite matchup in this bracket. You have, and we're going to go over the play-in first because you have Rutgers and Notre Dame at the 6-11. Alabama is the 6. Rutgers, Notre Dame, winner of the first four in. First of all, I guess any thoughts on Rutgers, Notre Dame, and who do you have before we talk about blank versus Alabama?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the Scarlet Knights on this one. Not going, wish I could be an ACC homer, but in this situation, I think that Rutgers at their best is very good. That we've seen them beat really good teams. So thinking of the win over Purdue at their best. I think Notre Dame at their best is not what Rutgers is. So assuming both teams bring their A game, I'm going to take Rutgers.
Here's where I stand, and we're going to talk about a couple seeding confusions and first four ins, last four outs. We'll talk about them as they come up throughout this. But this is the one that kind of frustrated me a little bit. Nothing against Rutgers was like an awesome story, like a 5 or 6 or 7 top 25 wins, and most of them being in their conference all year. And then they obviously tailspinned a little bit there late February. On the other side of that, which by the way, I'm going to get this out of the way, I have Rutgers as well, beating Notre Dame. The Scarlet Knights are built for a run in terms of how they're led. We'll talk about them in a minute. Notre Dame is an example of, I guess you can, in some conferences, ACC being one of them, they're the second best record, but they don't show for it. Your only impressive win is at Kentucky. I think it was actually at home, now that I think about it. It might have actually been in South Bend. But either way, you beat Kentucky by 2. This is a team that gets in like by osmosis. Like they're just in a decent conference. Like you give Notre Dame, like I get it. They got a first
Not
win.
even that decent of a conference this year.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. They're literally getting in. I make the osmosis joke. Like they're getting in because they're Notre Dame, and they're getting in because they're a decent record, because they're in the ACC, because they beat a decent. Like it's stupid. Like anyway, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it because Rutgers is ultimately the pick from both of our sides. What really matters is 6-11 here. So we both agree that the Scarlet Knights advance. Do they beat the Crimson Tide?
I think they do.
I agree.
I think they beat the Alabama Crimson Tide.
I agree.
Why is Alabama 6? I understand the big wins, like they beat Gonzaga, like that's the big thing that they're putting at the top of their resume, right? But they were kind of middling in the SEC this year. Like I don't know how I'm supposed to separate Alabama from say
pick any other 16. It doesn't
pick
matter.
any other. I mean, lower. I'm trying to find a lower SEC team. Like,
There's really
I
not
can't
a
think
lot.
of it. I mean, how do I separate Alabama from LSU that went 9-9? Like,
LSU, that's a good one.
I don't
6.
know how I separate them from there. I think I understand the SEC was a good conference this year. I think the Big Ten was a lot better and a lot stronger, and Rutgers
Agree.
fought through better there. And 11 always wins. And 11 always wins one of these games. And a play-in team, more specifically, I believe almost every time a play-in team gets past this round of 64. And this year, I think that team is the Rutgers Scarlet Knights.
Even better to your point, since 2010, number 6 seeds are just 21-23 against number 11.
Yeah, they don't even have a winning record. Like, part of that may be the committee setting these 6 seeds up, but you know.
Let me say this: the Alabama thing is frustrating for 2 reasons. One, I agree with you. Like the fact that LSU is on the same. We'll get to LSU and Iowa State in the moment, or later in a little while. Forgot how long this tournament bracket show can be. But LSU and Alabama, think about this for a second. Preseason, we knew nothing about these teams. We knew Alabama was going to be really good, or thought. Both, if you told me preseason that LSU and Alabama would both be a 6, I'd have told you were insane, right? Here we are, a 19-13 Alabama team. Sorry, Eddie. They're 76 points allowed, and they're 80 points per game. They can score with the best of them. That's not the problem. The problem for them is Rutgers can stop the best of them. They've done it all year in a tough conference. So I think no matter how you spin it, if Rutgers wins the Notre Dame game, they beat Alabama, and it's the one pick. I'm not changing in any of my brackets, and I'm sorry to Alabama for that. There's a lot of great pieces to the Tide, but Jaden Shackelford, etc. But I can't talk myself into the Tide. Now, they're a team they've showed before. When they get hot and they can play up, they can beat anyone. That's not a joke.
Well, that's the thing, right? Their offense is completely predicated on shooting threes, something they're not particularly good at. They just do a lot of it.
A lot of it.
And if they're falling particularly high, sure, they might win a few. UMBC beat Virginia because their shots were all falling. I understand that's an extreme example.
Oh, 100%.
But like, I'm just making the point. Yeah, if your shots are all falling, anybody might win. We can go back to the top and pick Georgia State over Gonzaga if every one of their shots is going to go in. But
the roller coaster ride of the Tide looks like this. Gonzaga win by 9. It seems like a lot, but it's not. Kentucky lost twice. Houston win by 1. Baylor win by 9. That's a big one. A&M lost by 16. Who got snubbed? Tennessee, they win by 5. We'll talk about Tennessee. Auburn, they lost twice. And Arkansas, they won by 1 pre-Arkansas run. I think that was the beginning of the SEC when they played them. So this Alabama team, lows of lows, super highs of highs. Obviously, you and I are sitting here sounding like dummies when they win next week.
Who did they get knocked out? Who knocked them out of the SEC tournament?
I don't remember. That was the tournament I watched the least until the quarterfinals.
Was it Tennessee?
Probably. Tennessee obviously went on to win the whole thing. First time since 79. Shout out to Tennessee for that. We'll talk about them in a little while. But regardless of who they lost to, the point being is the Tide really scare me when they're at their lowest lows, and against Rutgers they can be, but they really scare me also even more when they're at the highest of their highs. And this team, if they let's say they catch fire against Rutgers and they just blow them out the water, they're a team that I'm going to be like, oh crap, they're probably going to make the Sweet 16 because of that fact.
Oh, here's one you left out. Alabama lost to Davidson.
Oh, that's right. Well, it's not listed on here, which is weird. I don't know why it's not. I guess they only showed big, top losses and opponents.
I was just looking over my notes and
no, they really had a good schedule, though.
The Davidson Wildcats, and one of their big things is win over Alabama.
That's right. But 19-13 Alabama, when they lose to Davidson, but then they beat all these other teams pretty convincingly. Like it's a tough schedule. They have one of the toughest schedules in the country. I think they were the 4th, I believe.
Yeah,
they were a top 5 schedule. So anyway, I'm glad we agree there. Let's go with Texas State. Lord, I'm tired. Texas Tech and Montana State.
This one is not going to be close.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but we probably will spend another 30 seconds on this and move on.
Texas Tech defense is suffocating.
It's just ridiculous.
Sorry, Montana State.
No, showed some holes in their tournament, though. They did. They showed some holes, but
against an incredibly strong Big 12.
100%. And this is the
maybe also a conference that's probably stronger than the SEC.
It's crazy to think because the SEC is a lot of top tier teams. The thing with the SEC is there's a lot of these stupid Alabama, LSU teams, but there's also like your Kentuckys, Tennessees, Auburns of the world where it's just like, oh crap, this is just bloodbath, right? Texas Tech, best defense in the country. Unfortunately, Montana State, not a high-powered enough offense. I say that they score 77 points a game, but sorry. Great run. Congrats on making it. This is
one thing to score 77 a game in the Big Sky, and a whole different thing to do it against.
Absolutely. I don't like. I did say this already. I don't like their play down the stretch recently, but I do think they are going to be able to win those games close. That's how they like to win. All right, you brought up the Wildcats. Number 10 Davidson and number 7 Sparty. Michigan State's a 7 seed.
So this one might just be me being a bit of a favoritism thing, but I'm going with Davidson. I'm sticking to the team from North Carolina. Davidson got in the tournament despite losing their conference tournament. That alone speaks volumes for a team that is a mid-major that hasn't been around in a while. Their team's just that good this year.
Mm-hmm.
27-6. They score 75 points per game. They've had one top 25 matchup all season. That was Alabama. They won it.
I think it's really important to note they're also 50th in BPI, which is relatively high for a school of that size, or a school of that level this year. However,
And the other side, oh, okay. You go ahead and make the argument for Michigan State because honestly, I don't remember the last time I heard about Michigan State this season.
so we talked about them on opening night, and they were the least talked about team. We brushed over them, and I made the joke that, like, watch Sparty turn around and have a decent year and at least make the tournament. Well, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Is that how you say that? No. Here we are with Sparty, a 7 seed, and underestimating Tom Izzo. But then again, they're the same team that disappoints us all the time and haven't won a national championship in a long time. I don't know why I'm picking Michigan State, but I'm going to tell you right now, Josh, I didn't sleep last night because of it. I picked Sparty. They're middle of the pack, literally middle of the pack in everything in their conference. They are like average. But I think
4-8 against top 25 teams, which says a lot about the Big Ten.
absolutely
They're
where
4-8 against top.
where I'm at with it is if they're an above average 3-point shooting team when they get hot. The problem is if you're just mano a mano, Davidson's playing their best, and Michigan State's playing their best at average. I think Tom Izzo might be the difference. And I don't know why I'm taking a coach in the NCAA tournament because it never matters. But something had to tip the scale for me. And I also think the public is on Davidson, which makes me really nervous. When the entire general public takes a team like Davidson at 10, especially, Davidson 2 years ago, 3 years ago would have been a 13. Right now they're a 10, and they're convincingly a 10. I'm not going to talk myself out of it live on the show, but I'm going to stay with Sparty even though you almost did it. You almost talked me into it, out of it, myself out of it, whatever. I'm going to stick with Sparty. I don't think they go much further, though. I do think they beat Davidson.
So the last matchup of the round of 64 out in the West region, the Duke Blue Devils, our favorite, and Cal State Fullerton. I don't like Duke, but Cal State Fullerton, it's not getting it done. They're not getting it done.
To be fair, all Duke hate aside, I don't think there's a single 15 this year that can do it. Now, Oral Roberts took care of Ohio State. I get it.
And now, I mean, we'll have to talk about the impact of Kevin O'Banner in this year's tournament after what he did for Oral Roberts later.
So where I am with this is that Duke is ultimately one of the most talented teams, just talent-wise, in the entire country. And Cal State Fullerton is not. That's just ultimately what it came down to for me. I'm sorry, Cal State Fullerton. Congrats on winning your conference tournament. But Duke's going to get this as a game. I call it a get-right game, right? It's a game that Kansas typically gets every couple years. Villanova gets every couple years. Illinois got it a couple times. You know, every decent team, UConn when they were a top seed a couple years ago, like every team has, Kentucky gets them all the time. You get these 15s, you get even the second round where you play a team and you're just like, you're convincingly better than them. I'm not sure that that's the case next. Obviously, you have Davidson and I have Michigan State. We'll get to that in a minute. But you're just in a moment here where you're like, better team by far, no doubt. So, yes, unfortunately, I guess, whatever. Duke is going to be moving on. Do we want to keep rolling through Michigan State Duke or Davidson Duke, or do you want to go back up to Gonzaga?
I think we can go back up at the top. So
let's do it. So to recap, I have Boise State, you have Memphis. Ultimately, doesn't really matter unless you think one of them is knocking them off.
It doesn't matter here.
Okay.
Chet and Drew roll on. Memphis gets a fun win. I mean, we see a lot of talent on the court at the same time in this Gonzaga Memphis game, at least on my side. But the Bulldogs gonna roll through Tigers.
I'll say this convincingly. I'm not going to be shocked if Boise State beats Gonzaga, only because of the way
I would be.
Oh, we're all going to. Okay, to be clear, we're all going to be shocked. My point being is defensively, Boise State's a team that can do that. And if they win against Memphis, I'm going to watch this game intently because if it's close in the final few minutes, it's going to come down to who makes their shots. Obviously, I'm going to side with Chet Holmgren and Drew Timme and those guys, but I also am going to understand that Boise State got there and can do it. So the Boise State.
I guess my question for you on that is: does Boise State have the size to match up against Gonzaga?
Probably not, but the issue for me at that point is they have better guard play, I think. So can they take advantage of that? Maybe. But they also they also are very, when I say streaky, they are like they either make every three or miss every three. There's really the Boise State's very swing when it comes to their 3-point shooting ability. They beat San Diego State 3 times, who's a great defensive team. They lost to Colorado State twice. We'll talk about. They beat Wyoming twice and lost once. They beat Washington State. Why do they keep listing Washington State in all these notable wins for these teams? They aren't in the tournament.
Power 5.
Stop doing that. Ugh, ESPN. And then they lost to St. Louis by 4, who, again, another good defensive team. So I think Boise State, my point being is if Memphis wins in your scenario here, if Memphis wins, then I think Gonzaga moves on. If Boise State wins, I'm a little nervous. That's where I am with it. It doesn't really matter. Ultimately, either side of our decision here, I think Gonzaga wins.
I'm not getting nervous about the Bulldogs in the first weekend.
Probably not. But this would be the one that would make me at least watch it a little more intently. All right, so next we have UConn and UConn Vermont is what I have. You have UConn Arkansas. I went a little less chalk than you there. Obviously Arkansas is really hot, but let's go with who comes out victorious against UConn, as what we'll say, I guess, or who comes out victorious there.
So I think the Razorbacks keep rolling through, even though I like this UConn team. This is one I keep going back and forth on as to what I think will happen, because I could see UConn pulling it through, but man, I think this Arkansas team has something special this year. I think they're going to run. I think the first weekend, Arkansas is really just going to come out motivated. They had a bad exit from the SEC tournament, and I think that they're going to be a lot for some of these teams to handle early on. And yeah, I'm going to have the Razorbacks move on to the Sweet 16.
Shockingly, this Arkansas team reminds me of the one that Carolina beat a couple years ago on the way to their national title.
That's scary.
Like, I know. Convincingly,
they were one of the closest teams to beating Carolina that year. They almost had.
They were. My point being, though, this Arkansas team has its flaws and I think can be taken advantage of. And if there's any team to do it, I do think it could be UConn. Ultimately, no matter who's on the other side of this, I wasn't picking Vermont. And I wasn't picking Arkansas anyway. So I'm going to go with UConn only because of the rebounding advantage of whoever they play. They're just a better rebounding team than everybody in this entire side of the bracket minus Gonzaga. The problem is, though, if it's Arkansas, I think you're right. I think Arkansas wins that game. If it's Vermont, we think about it a little bit. But Vermont's
at that point, I'm looking at UConn. Because like I said, I like the UConn team quite a bit. There's a lot of teams I like that just aren't getting very far.
To be clear, in the round of 32, this was the one I debated the most. I think Vermont can win it. And I'm really, honestly, I almost 30 seconds ago changed it to Vermont. Seriously. And I feel bad about this pick. I want Vermont to win this game because I think they can. And I'm right now about to change it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stick with my guns. I'm going to say UConn did really well in a really good conference this year. The Big East was underrated, and I think they can prove it. Vermont, however, is the worst case scenario matchup for them. So we have a Sweet 16 of Gonzaga, UConn, I believe, or no? You have Gonzaga, Arkansas. We're still discrepancing a little bit. Good, though. That's what we want.
So here's a matchup that we do agree on. Rutgers, Texas Tech.
I have the Scarlet Knights.
Explain, please.
Absolutely. I have the Scarlet Knights who are talented, and they are really good defensively as well, right? They're not Texas Tech, who's number one defensively in the country, but I don't think Rutgers' record does them justice. I think they're a really efficient senior-led team, and I think they are weathering the storm based on the fact that they completely just obliterated ranked teams this year when they played them in their conference. They won these games convincingly for the most part, and they, at the end of the day, I just have a feeling about an 11 seed. It happens sometimes. I liked what I saw from Rutgers. I was high on them throughout the year, and I think based on how their matchups fell, this is a team that they could beat. I'm just not seeing this with Texas Tech. I think they're vulnerable, a little chink in the armor a little bit there this last couple weeks, but I don't think this is this magical team that's defensive that's going to beat Duke. I don't think they even play Duke in my scenario, unfortunately. So convincingly, the fact that that Rutgers has a couple of really great senior guards, I'm going to take Rutgers. I think they get it done.
I think Texas Tech beats Rutgers, and I don't think it's particularly close.
That's fine. We're going to disagree. That's great. That's what we want.
Think that Texas Tech's defense is going to be all that we talk about. I don't think Rutgers stands much of a chance. I think there's so much veteran leadership on this Texas Tech team I mean, we're talking about Bryson Williams, the senior forward leading scorer. Kevin McCullough is a junior. He's a top rebounder and assist guy. Kevin O'Banor, who we talked about, the reason Oral Roberts made such an insane run last season, now plays for Texas Tech, is a senior who just took a team to the Elite Eight last year. Yeah, I'm still going with the Red Raiders.
They're a team. Every year I have a team that I regret, and they might be it. However, I think their efficiency inside the three-point line, as crazy as that sounds, we're talking about a tournament team that doesn't hit threes efficiently well. They do, but inside
UVA?
yeah, yeah, right. No, but seriously, inside the
Very
arc,
similar styles really, for these teams.
they are inside the arc. They're very scary in a bad way team. I think they don't capitalize on their twos a lot more than they should, but they can hit the three ball with anyone. So yes, 3-and-D type team, I get it, but I am going to ride with the 11 seed that I think a lot of people are going to like in the first week or the first game, but not in the second. And I think Rutgers can get it done because they play. And that's the thing I didn't even mention. They play this competition well. They've done it all year, right? They have 5 or 6. I think it's 6 top 25 wins. That's ridiculous, right? Nobody else basically has that resume. So anyway, Rutgers is my pick, and you're going to go with Texas Tech, which would set us up with, drumroll, Sparty and Duke, or Davidson and Duke, who really cares. Where do you end up? Is Duke playing Rutgers, or is Duke playing Texas Tech?
Davidson. Duke's going to be playing in the Sweet 16. Okay. I think this team has too much talent to lose to teams like Cal State Fullerton or Davidson or Michigan State.
Correct. A little bit of a
I understand the hilarity of Coach K versus Tom Izzo. I mean, like, I don't know if it's hilarity, just like the coolness of putting those two great coaches in a matchup again with Coach K's last run.
In the round of 32, mind you.
Yeah.
Or could be. You don't have them
there. This Duke team is, I'm not sure about their ability to play together. And spoiler alert, I don't have them making a long run. But they're far too much raw talent to lose to the Davidson team.
All right. Let's go with Sweet 16. Let's go back up to the top.
Okay, so you agree. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm moving on from that. Yeah. Gonzaga, and I have UConn, and you have Arkansas. Do the Razorbacks get this done? No, they don't. Dang it. I really did. No, people who listened last year, of all people, should know that you're not picking against Gonzaga very convincingly early on. It's not happening.
No, not really. Like,
no.
I've watched this team play. They're just so good. Like, they've only lost 3 games all year to Duke, Alabama, and St. Mary's. The lowest seed in this tournament they've lost to is a 6. I don't know if anybody else in the tournament can say that the lowest team they've lost to is a 6. Most of the teams, the lowest team they've lost to isn't in the tournament.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Like,
Gonzaga gets this done pretty convincingly.
They are almost, you could call them the powerhouse in college basketball right now. The only thing they haven't done yet is win a national title. We'll see what happens. But yeah, no, Bulldogs will be the favorite heading into the West Regional Final.
What's crazy is I don't think there's any team that can beat them until the West Regional Final. That's the crazy part about it. Arkansas may be sure, but Arkansas is going to shoot themselves in the foot. We all know that, right? Against a team like Gonzaga. Gonzaga is going to beat UConn convincingly. I'm sorry. Gonzaga would beat Vermont. Again, sorry. Mm-hmm. And that brings us to the other side, where right now I have Duke and Rutgers, a matchup of the centuries. And you have
Duke and Texas Tech.
And Texas Tech, which, by the way, most people probably have. Mm-hmm. Where are you leaning on the Coach K pendulum in the I guess this is what would that be? Sweet 16 still, sorry.
Yeah. So here's where it comes down to. And my pick's not going to shock anyone. But this specific Duke team has fallen apart because of inexperience and inability to take care of the basketball and just kind of no real standout leader that's taking over down the stretch and keeping them from falling apart.
Which is sad, by the way, because they should have one of those things.
So how do you trigger that to happen? You put a stifling defense that only runs a half-court offense on you for the entire game. It's what Texas Tech's going to do to Duke. And I can't name you who's going to pick that apart. Paolo Banchero was really struggled to score the basketball against Leaky Black and Armando Bacot in the most recent game in Cameron Indoor against a Texas Tech defense. I don't see him having a great game. I don't see any of these two players having a great game. I'm going with the Red Raiders.
Even crazier, he didn't have a rebound until 8 minutes left in the second half against Kivi Aluma and Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
He didn't have a rebound until the 8 minute. Like,
and that's no effort.
spoiler, my
I don't want
Paolo
to put it, but
Banchero.
that's no effort right there.
I understand, but like, it doesn't matter. You're a top 4 projected pick, and I say 4 because I'm just spoiler. My thoughts on Paolo Banchero will be out to the world soon, because spoiler, you cannot be a top 4 pick in my eyes if you can't get a rebound against Virginia Tech in the ACC championship game until the 8 minute mark. When you have Mark Williams, who obviously is a great player, you have AJ Griffin, who love him or hate him, he's got a lot of potential. Trevor Keels has been really bad this year. Let's just not sugarcoat this. If you're going to have Trevor Keels have the game of his life if you think you're going to beat Texas Tech. Can I tell you the funniest part about my rant is I have Duke advancing because they're playing Rutgers in my bracket.
Yeah, I know.
So
I've already figured that one out.
For the sheer fact of the cupcake walk that they do have, minus Texas Tech, if you have them, I think Duke plays Gonzaga in the Elite Eight. By the way, if Texas, I'm going to keep caveating myself. I'm giving my picks, but I want people to understand my thought process. If Texas Tech is there, they beat Duke convincingly. I think I'm with you on there. But my point being is I just saw a couple of different things that went a couple of different ways that you're going to make picks that sound crazy and they might work out. And that's where I went with Rutgers.
And we talk about chinks in the armor. Like you said, Texas Tech had shown chinks in the armor. Duke is.
So does Duke.
Shown a great gaping hole in it this past few weeks.
I don't like enough. Like, they're the worst feeling Elite Eight team I have. Period. And they're there. All right. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way because I think this is going to be convincing again, even though you have Texas Tech, which a lot of people think can beat Gonzaga. However, who cares who I have on the other side? I don't care. It's basically going to be Texas Tech and Gonzaga. Let's just be honest. I don't think Texas Tech or Duke is the team that beats Gonzaga, unfortunately for them, because both teams have defensive abilities. But Gonzaga, to me, Holmgren, I think, is going to have a game. It may not be the round of 32. It may not be the Final Four. I think he's going to have a game where you go, holy crap, duh, this guy's the number 1 pick, and he just goes crazy. And I think this is the game. I think he steps up for a team like Texas Tech. Or if it's Duke, God bless him. But if it's Duke, obviously he shows up against a blue blood, right? He's going to have a game where you're going to go, holy crap, this guy's really good. And we knew it, but this is the Elite Eight's going to be the one. And I think if it's against Texas Tech, there's just nothing they can do. So I have Gonzaga moving on to the Final Four. Shocker.
This is an interesting spot because I think both of these teams can beat Gonzaga.
They can.
Duke has done it this season.
They can.
Texas Tech has the defense, the way to frustrate Gonzaga the same way that St. Mary's did when they beat them in the regular season.
Correct.
I don't think either of these teams do beat Gonzaga, however.
There it is.
I think to throw up a name that we haven't talked about, we talk about the importance of guard play late in the time. Andrew Nembhard is an incredible guard that Gonzaga has at the front of their team. And he's going to show that throughout this tournament because it's not just Holmgren, it's not just Timmy, but Nembhard is there too. And it is going to be tough to beat this Gonzaga team. I don't know who does it, if anyone. It took an unbelievably experienced Baylor team that was on a journey last year to get it done.
Who we're about to talk about shortly.
A very different Baylor team we're about to talk about shortly.
Yeah. So
because they had the three most important pieces from that team are gone.
And they're still a 1 seed. So Baylor and Norfolk State. Baylor, before I say anything else, I think Norfolk State is the best 16 seed. I think this is really unfortunate for a really injured or a really, depleted right now feeling like Baylor team who's the weakest 1 seed, whether you like it or not. But Norfolk State's a hard draw here. This is if I'm
Norfolk State is in the top 10% of college basketball games played in the country.
If I'm Paolo Uggetti, this is the game I'm tweeting.
Mm-hmm.
only because of the just Baylor's beat up, period, right? And Norfolk State, they played, let's be real here for a second. I want to give a shout out to Coppin State and Juan Dixon, former Maryland standout leader in points for Maryland all time, believe it or not, Juan Dixon. Coppin State was in their conference tournament final against Norfolk State, 9-22 at the time. If Coppin State had beat Norfolk State, this is not a, you can laugh, Josh. Coppin State would have been statistically and record-wise the worst team to ever make the NCAA tournament. They would be the
Yeah.
Georgia State. They would be Gonzaga's matchup in the
Yeah.
first round. And oh, how funny would it have been if that game was close? Anyway, shout out to Juan Dixon. Norfolk State's a tough draw. I think this game's a lot closer than people realize. Kendall Brown's going to have to really step up. He's a lot higher in draft boards than I would have ever had him right now, and he's going to have to just play convincingly. I don't love picking Baylor. I know that sounds insane playing a 16 seed, but Norfolk State's going to make this one really, really, really interesting. I will pick Baylor, though.
So I agree with you, and it's to anyone that's picking a bracket and you feel for whatever reason, I was like this at some point just to do it as a joke, that you have to pick a 16 seed to beat the one, pick Norfolk State.
Correct.
Baylor's hurt. Jonathan, I'm going to butcher his name, Stachula
I know.
is out for the season.
I got you.
LJ Cryer's hurt. We don't even know if LJ Cryer, who I think is the leading scorer at 16 and a half a game for Baylor,
Not going to play.
we don't think he's going to play.
Which hurts.
And to put it in perspective, to think about how does a 16 seed beat the one? Well, we got to go back to what UMBC did. UMBC played fast, hit a lot of shots, and the important thing was UMBC hit their free throws and hit a lot of them. Norfolk State is one of the best teams in the country at getting to the free throw line.
21 a game.
If a 16 seed is going to beat a one, it's Norfolk State. However, Norfolk State has played one significant game this season. That was against Xavier, and they lost by 40. I'm not picking Norfolk State to beat Baylor. I think Baylor's going to win. But if you have to pick one, like if you're on your March Madness itch, you want to watch one, pay attention. I'm going to be watching this game. My Tar Heels are in the next spot over. I'm going to be completely transparent. I'm rooting for Norfolk State hard. I really am.
Absolutely.
I'm rooting for them hard, but we'll see.
Because for the sake of time, obviously realizing that we've been doing this for almost 30 minutes and we're only through a couple of these brackets, I'm going to say this and I'm going to get this out of the way for you. Based on everything we just talked about, if North Carolina beats Marquette, they beat Baylor, period. So I'm going to spoil something for you. I have North Carolina in the Sweet 16. Going to get it out of the way.
Moving right through. I'll get my thoughts on that when we get there.
I want to get it out of the way just so I'm transparent with you. When I sit here, I'm not going to spend, because for the sake of time, there's going to be teams where I don't want to talk about as much because I'll get to them. This is one of those situations. I could care less about Marquette. They just were this middling team in the Big East. I didn't like anything about them all year. North Carolina, I think, is a lot better than people realize. I think Baylor is depleted. Obviously, I have North Carolina being Marquette. Any thoughts before we move on?
UNC Marquette, the committee was having a laugh with themselves about creating this matchup because there's no telling how this game's going to go, because these are the two biggest roller coaster teams in the NCAA tournament. The teams that have been good enough for UNC's side to beat Duke convincingly in Cameron Indoor, to the Marquette side where they've beaten Villanova twice. However, you've also got UNC who lost to Pittsburgh at home, and Marquette who lost all three of their matchups against Creighton, who was a middling Big East team and was a middling team in the tournament.
You can put the Pitt loss aside for a second because I think Carolina's getting hot at the right time. Yes, they lost in the AC tournament, but I think they're seriously better than a lot of teams. I'll talk about them in a moment when I spoil again my round of 32 pick. Actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and get it out of the way. Their guards have to make shots. The last 10 games or so, their guards have just made me want to vomit. And that's fine. That's okay. When you have Baycott and Leaky Black down there, who can out-rebound anybody in the country, by the way, Baycott, second leading rebounder or third leading rebounder in a season in Carolina history, like that, he's going to grab a board. If they miss the shot, he's there. Got it. No big deal. Problem is, guards have to make more shots. I don't love the guard play in a tournament where guard play is important. I am really high on the fact that Baycott can absolutely just put them on the shoulders and at least knock off Baylor and obviously beat Marquette. So I'll get those two out of the way really quick because I wanted you to just hear that out of my mouth before you before we got far enough. So, because you probably are shocked that that's one of my big upsets.
Yeah. So Wyoming versus IU.
Let's just get this one done. I think Wyoming wins. I know a lot of people are going to have Indiana. I like Wyoming all year. I'm with the Jim Masano train on that.
Mhm.
Wyoming's a really good team. They beat people convincingly. However, for Jim's sake, when he brought it up, we obviously didn't know the seeding when he was talking about how good Wyoming can be. Didn't think they'd get a play in like this. That just sucks. I just hate that for them. If they're in the 12 spot somewhere else, like say, and they're what, a 12, right? Yep. If they're a 12 spot, say against UConn, I would probably think about picking them, that kind of thing, right? But in this situation, I think they can beat Iowa or Indiana. I'm sorry, but yeah,
Yeah, I don't. It's one of those where to me this is kind of a toss up. I don't know who's going to win. I don't much care who does.
same here.
I'll go with Wyoming. I do think they're a little bit of a better team than Indiana.
Indiana lately has been
Yeah.
good. That I think that's what got them in. Period.
Mhm. I think Wyoming's a little bit of a better team. I don't much care who wins because I think this St. Mary's team is awesome.
Yep. Let's just not sugarcoat this. St.
Like I
Mary's is
watched them play
nasty.
Gonzaga. They may be a small school, but this team is a giant killer.
Yep.
Um, and they're going to shut you down. They play team basketball. There's not a player who jumps off the page at me from the St. Mary's team,
All of
but
my
they play
same
good team basketball.
all of my same thoughts on them when we talked about the upset day where they beat Gonzaga are the same thoughts, and that's why I have them advancing as well. Even though Wyoming, I think, is a really good matchup. UCLA Akron. We got a 4-13 here. I don't want to spend much time on this
UCLA.
one. Only because you're just gonna like UCLA. I'm
Akron
sorry,
shouldn't have
Akron.
won the Akron kind of. They landed a couple of surprising wins to win the MAC.
Yep.
They had a good regular season. Don't get me wrong, but UCLA. We're
Yep.
not underestimating Mick Cronin's team this year.
Yeah, me of all people, Red. I'm not gonna.
No, you're
I'm not
riding.
gonna.
You love your Johnny Juzang.
Yeah,
You're
you
gonna
know
be
I'm not
glued to
changing that.
that one. Yeah.
I am not changing that
Yeah.
thought process any, unfortunately. But I just think they were underrated in the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 was overrated as a whole. I think they are a better team than people probably realize as a four. They just kind of like won games. They were kind of like okay in some spots, and they just kind of got it done. You know, 20 and whatever record with a couple losses. Like they just made it through, and they're like, we just want to make it to the tournament. We don't care if we're an 11. We just have Johnny Jugang, and we get a 4 this time instead. So, yeah, UCLA is a good team. I am excited to see what they do. Texas BT.
So I'd like to formally apologize to the University of Texas on behalf of the NCAA selection committee because this sucks, Texas. I'm sorry. Um, they have to play the hottest team in college basketball,
At the
who
worst time.
has nothing to lose and is
Nope.
playing completely with house money.
Uh,
This Virginia Tech team beat Notre Dame, North Carolina, and Duke 3 days in a row.
By the way,
Virginia Tech's going to beat Texas, and they're moving on to the round of 32.
we completely agree. They won
I saw that
convincingly.
come up, and I'm like, oh, that sucks for Texas. Like,
Yeah,
and it
here's
sucks
what's
for Chris
crazy.
Beard.
Here's what's crazy though, because Texas, like, talk about transfer portal. They had the
Yeah.
most transfer portal guys this year. Period. What's nuts to me is that they're a 6 because we preseason thought they were going to be, a 3 at worst, depending on where they fell.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Chris Beard effect would be bigger.
So, yeah, no, I agree. But where I am with this is Virginia Tech again. You mentioned house money. I just think that they are going to slow this game down. And what does Texas love to do? Play super fast. So, when a team who's really hot, a la Virginia, who plays really great defense, a la Virginia, plays a team like Texas, who's really fast.
Not as fast. It's not fast like the Shaka Smart era.
No,
Chris
no, no.
Beard's a slow pace kind of guy.
But they play
They don't
faster.
play at his Texas Tech pace, but
No, but they also don't play. But they also don't play at how slow Virginia Tech's going to slow the game down. That's my point. I don't care how slow or fast Texas is. They are slower, or sorry, they are faster than Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's going to grind this game out, and I'm not shocked if it's 59-54. I would
and
not be
another
floored.
point just for anyone that's playing along at home. The coach of Virginia Tech is the guy that turned that Wofford University team into the one that pulled like a 7 seed. That's Virginia Tech's coach, just to put it in perspective for everyone
Who's also
following from home.
I mean, I was going to say this, the ACC tournament documentary I've mentioned the last couple of weeks, how cool it is and how much I've watched it and how I think it's really cool. It's ACC tournament's the greatest tournament. That's not the NCAA tournament, obviously. I fully believe that. But my point being is,
Not a
how you
bold statement.
no, it's not. I'm just saying it because I believe it. The Watford guy, he is undefeated in conference tournaments in his career. 5 at Wofford and 1 in the most prestigious non-NCAA tournament conference. He won it his first year. What? Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I will say this: Texas. The only other reason I didn't pick them is they shoot themselves in the foot, and their only big win was Tennessee by 1, and they split the series with Kansas. That's it. There's no other convincing win for me on Texas's schedule. I am okay with picking Virginia Tech, and if I'm wrong, who gives? Texas is not making it that far.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, by the way, I'm so glad I thought of this before we moved on. Virginia Tech is 19th in BPI.
Texas is 18th.
That's why I'm picking.
They're 1 spot removed and 5 seeds removed.
Yeah.
That's why I formally apologize. Texas, you're playing a team that is way better than 11. This is a bad matchup for you, and I'm sorry. You just got a tough draw.
That's why I like this. Oh, by the way, Texas did, as of looking at this just now, Texas did go up a little bit, so they're 2 off. Texas is 17 and UConn is 18. Either way, they were flipped the other day. I saw it. I know what you're talking about. I actually wanted to bring it up for the opposite side of it. I wanted to read just a few teams behind Virginia Tech and why I'm okay with picking them. Arkansas is 20, Alabama 21, St. Mary's 22, Ohio State 23, Memphis 24, Loyola Chicago, North Carolina, Wisconsin, San Diego State.
All those teams with higher seeds than Virginia Tech.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Anyway, let's move on. We got a bracket to finish. Purdue and Yale. If you give me more than
Boilermakers.
Thank you. I was going to say, if you give me more than one word, I'm moving on. Boilermakers. Next. Sorry, Yale.
This is not the Ivy Leagues here.
No, Yale barely won their conference anyway.
Racers and Dons.
I have San Francisco. I think and I know you're going to be shocked by that. I get it. This is going to be another one. People are going to look at me crazy, but I'm going to tell you right now. When do they play? I forgot the day. There's so many games. They play on Thursday at another 9:00 game.
9:40.
Catch me on Twitter. Catch me on Twitter, fans who have a disagreement with me on this. Catch me on Twitter 2 hours at 11:40. Catch me on Twitter when I'm laughing because San Francisco beat Murray State. Murray State's record, I'm sorry, I know it's 30-2. It's not 30-2. Like, they just steamrolled their conference, which, So where I am with this is San Francisco's conference is really good. They are a team that I mentioned. I was like, I'm full in. They're in, right? BYU was kind of that weird on the bubble team. They're in a conference with St. Mary's. They're in a conference with Gonzaga. They're in a conference with BYU, even though they didn't make it. I have San Francisco. I totally understand you're about to pick Murray State, and I'm fine with disagreeing.
KJ Williams and Tevin Brown are the stars for the Murray State Racers. To put these things in perspective, when we talk about experience, they were starters as freshmen.
With
Ja Morant.
I knew it. I knew you were going to go there. I knew you were.
And win to the round of 32.
They won one game.
They're not only 30-2 this season. They're incredibly experienced. I like San Francisco, but they barely squeaked into the tournament. This is a big thing for them just to make it because I think it's been a long time since that's happened. They're usually not in a league that's going to get multiple bids. They're playing out there with Gonzaga, and they're not making it that far. This is great for San Francisco. Congratulations. Really enjoy this because this is awesome for you. But Murray State team's good.
San Francisco is one of the best 3-point defensive teams. That's why I think the difference makers there. However, if this is a close game, like if this is like a 62, 60, 80.
The Murray State doesn't necessarily rely on the 3 ball.
They don't. But if they need to, San Francisco is going to lock it up. My other point, though, if this is a close game, if this is 80-72, 80 to anywhere within less than 10 where you're going to have to get the foul line, San Francisco is one of the worst teams in the tournament in free throw percentage. So that's going to be the part. If they're in a close game, yikes. If they're not, great. All right. Kentucky and St. Peter's. Again, if you give me more than 3 words, I'm going to throw up.
I do have more than 3 words.
I know. I do it.
I'm not picking upset. Kentucky wins easily by 40. However, we have to mention, because we talked about this a lot with Jim, St. Peter's won the Colonial Athletic Association. They beat out this team that beat out Iona. They beat Monmouth in the title game. They beat out all these other good schools that we thought that we would have had a lot of excitement to talk about. St. Peter's won their Super Bowl when they won the Colonial Athletic title game against Monmouth. That was their Super Bowl. Congrats. Kentucky's going to just run. Ty Washington and Shaden Sharp are going to run them into the ground.
I love how point blank you're saying. Congrats, you now have to play Kentucky.
Yeah, congratulations, your prize is playing Kentucky.
All right, I'm glad you didn't go much further than that because Kentucky's just going to hand them their L.
Okay, so rolling up to the round of 32, you've already spoiled what your pick is here.
Sorry.
You told us that North Carolina is going to beat Baylor.
To be clear, if Baylor plays Marquette, Baylor advances. Yes. I think North Carolina is the worst matchup. That's why.
I agree. Part of it's a bit shocker. Is that surprising to you?
Yes. What?
That UNC is going to beat Baylor?
Yes. I thought you were going to side with Baylor because Baylor last year was insane. I know they have obviously a lot of different pieces, but
I have a very simple explanation.
Okay.
But I'm going bare bones. We're not going to make this complicated, simple basketball explanation.
I like it in the tournament especially.
Baylor lost their starting center in Jonathan Stachula for the season. North Carolina has, without exaggeration, one of the top 3 big men in terms of production, scoring, and rebounding in the country. If UNC plays Baylor, they're going to pass Armando Bacot the ball every time and go after whatever backup is starting at center, and he's going to score, and score some more.
And that's
Baylor's not going to be able to handle it.
That's funny, the full circle moment of the show. That's why I love doing the show. If he can't score, he's going to have to look for guard, and guard is going to have to make shot. And if those shots,
if that's the case against Baylor, UNC's not winning.
Right, but I'm saying that's the game. They have to turn it on. Those guards.
But I don't think shots. Baylor doesn't have their guy to stop Armando Bacot when he gets there.
But if let's say they're a great defensive team as a team. Like let's say they swarm him, they do a double team, etc. There's gonna be things they're gonna be able to throw at him, right?
Well, then there's gonna be open shots, and I think that they'll knock down
their coach is really smart too. Their coach is more experienced than Hubert Davis, so. They can throw things at him. However, again, the joke about the guards, they throw it out. Somebody's going to make a shot, and they will if they beat Baylor.
Well, Caleb Love will take that shot. He's not afraid.
No. Top 3 big man, top 3 confidence guy in all of this tournament. Here we go. St. Baylor's. Good grief. I am running on fumes. St. Mary's and UCLA is what I have. I believe that's what we both have. Are you on the St. Mary's train still?
I like these Gales, man.
Oh, no. No.
As much as I like UCLA, man, I'm really behind the St. Mary's team.
That's fine.
It takes a special team to beat Gonzaga. Convincingly, like it wasn't close. Give me the Gales over UCLA in a game that I will be glued to once again, to be clear.
No, this is probably going to happen. Like, no matter where we disagree or not, like this game.
And I will be glued to the screen.
Wyoming is the only thing that might prevent this game from happening, but obviously we went over that already. So UCLA, and unfortunately in our sake here, I think UCLA moves on to the Sweet 16. I think they get it together. They're a really balanced team, and if you're a balanced team, you can beat a defensive team because you're able to do well in different spots that you might not have to force yourself to excel at 3. You also have a guy like Johnny Juzang, who I'm obviously very high on, who can completely take over a game as we saw last year. So if he does,
UCLA can beat anyone. I just don't see them resurrecting the same magic.
By the way, to be clear to everyone, I had about a 1 or 2 little section page note for every single team that I picked. And my notes for UCLA, I've got a couple stats here and there, a couple things I liked, whatever. My thing where UCLA was, come on, of course I'm picking them. That's what I have for notes for them. So that's what I'm sticking with. Of course I'm picking UCLA. Let's roll. Let's do this. We both have, believe it or not, we both have Virginia Tech and Purdue. Can I preface this before you say anything? Sure. I'm not giving my pick first. I don't want to give my pick first. I want to hear where you have to go with this. I'm prefacing with this. Purdue, and I'm just going to get this out of the way. This was a question I was going to ask you, and I'm actually just going to ask it to you now because it makes sense. It's topical. Purdue, to me, is the biggest could lose in the first round, but could also win the national title team this year.
Yes.
Obviously, they play Yale. And I say first round, I mean round of 32. I think they're going to beat Yale. But they are the biggest swing team, as in they literally could win the national title convincingly.
Mhm.
They also could lose to Virginia Tech. Before you answer that, before you say who you have, is Purdue that team for you? And if not, who?
Oh, Purdue's that team. Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
All right. Never mind.
That's right in line with what they've done all season.
With that being said,
Give me Jaden Ivey and the Boilermakers.
ouch.
I think
Okay.
Jaden Ivey is going to. I think if we're making the predictions, look at prospect wise now of the lottery prospects, or just even looking at that that top tier. We're talking like Holmgren, Boncaro, Jabari Smith, Powell, Jaden Ivey, Sharp in Washington.
Yep.
Jaden Ivey is going to be the star-studded performance in the NCAA tournament this year. I think
I'll,
he's going to be in the team that's going to stick around maybe the longest, and is going to have the best performances to open eyes.
Doesn't always happen, but I like Cade Cunningham last year a little bit. They played a lot better than people think. They beat Tennessee, etc. I do, however, though, I think there's too many weaknesses, and I think Virginia Tech can exploit them. You can be shocked again that I'm picking Virginia Tech. Ha ha ha, right? But here's why. I have a convincing argument. Jaden Ivey, unfortunately, and we'll get to some breakdown on people like him in a few weeks here, but he gets downhill really fast, and then he forgets to pass the ball. And if you don't have an opportunity to play your style of game, like Virginia Tech can force you to, they can force a team like Duke, who, by the way, more talented than Purdue. That's not a disrespect. They can force a team like Duke to slow down and force shots. This is a team that can miss those. Purdue. They just have that big swing like I was talking about. Virginia Tech, again, I'm just riding with the fact that they're high momentum wise. They're just as high as they can be momentum wise, and they're also at the other end of the spectrum. They're able to slow the game down and completely grind you. So I think this is the worst matchup for Purdue. Unfortunately, Texas, obviously, I think Purdue could have taken care of it. Would have been a bloodbath, etc. I'm not sure. I'm not pedal to the floor, Virginia Tech, let's go Hokies. But the ACC is going to shock people, and this is going to be the team that might do it. So sorry to Purdue. The round of 32 is really early. I get it. It sucks. I hate to do it. But Jaden Ivey can't do everything.
Saturday for this Purdue team.
I know. I get it. Look,
Yeah.
there's always a team that does it, though. It was Tennessee
Mhm.
last year, right? It was Tennessee last year. We were like, oh, crap. So it was Ohio State even, too. So
That was Thursday.
Virginia Tech, unfortunately, is that team. Next, I don't think this one takes very long. You have Murray State. I have San Francisco. We both have them playing Kentucky.
Wildcats.
I don't. Here's where I am with it. I agree. However, I do like San Francisco, obviously, the round before. But if this is Murray State, I am a little nervous if I'm Kentucky. Because Murray State
competitive game
has
with
the
this Murray
competitive
State.
game.
Still going with the Wildcats.
100%. The thing with Kentucky, as I mentioned it earlier, they are, and I'm going to say this all month, they're a balanced team. They can do everything at every position, at least a little bit above average. And that's fine. And they can do a lot of things, obviously, way above average. So
Great
roll
coach
back up
as well.
roll back up to the top. Absolutely. Roll back up to the top. I believe it is North Carolina St. Mary's on your end, and it is UCLA North Carolina on my end. I have a little bit more of a blue blood, feeling here, but oh no, you're looking at me. People can't see your face for this. I don't like this. You're a St. Mary's fan, right? Is that what this is? You're this. Oh no. Oh my God, no.
Tar Heels. Two reasons. One, I'm being biased. That's reason number one.
That's fine. Who cares?
Reason number one is I'm being biased.
If State was a
I think
16
at
seed,
this
I'd
point,
pick them.
number
That's not a
two,
joke.
assuming the Heels have made it to the Sweet 16, now they're rolling. And we're talking about a team that's
100%.
had some long win streaks this season. For a team that was considered on the bubble for so long, rolling off 7 or 8 in a row in conference play in the ACC. They get rolling, they can do something. Last reason, or bigger team than St. Mary's, like size wise, just a physically larger team, and I think that they could try to use Baycott, use Manic to kind of exploit that and move on to the Elite Eight.
That's what's scary about St. Mary's is that they're not that big up front, but they're still you feel like they are. They're scary on defense, like we talked about. To be clear on the bias, if State was a 16 seed playing like Gonzaga, I would pick them. I would totally do it. Let's just be I'm not obviously kidding. I wouldn't do that. However, on a scale of 1 to 10, if I told you I had Carolina as well, how much would you believe me?
I don't know if I would have Carolina against UCLA in the Sweet 16.
Good, because I don't. I have
Yeah.
UCLA.
It's like I don't think I would have, because
Go Bruins.
you're riding UCLA hard. I believe that you probably have them in
You
the
know what's
Final Four.
you know what's crazy though? I did a first draft of this
Yeah.
like late Sunday night. I was up really late for no reason, and I was like, "Crap! I think UCLA is going to lose in the round of 32 in my 2-pointers bracket." And I went back and I was like, "No, no, no! They're going to do this. They're going to do that." I was like, who am I kidding? They're in the Elite Eight. Of course they are. I I don't have a good reason though because UCLA just is going to have to be. Now they obviously have. I mentioned they preseason they had a good big man they were bringing in a transfer. His name has slipped me now, but they have a big man that can at least try to match up with Baycott. I think they're going to have to win the guard battle, which I think they can do, obviously.
Yeah, they would win the guard battle.
But that's fine.
No question.
That's important. And I think Juzang is going to be a guy that they're going to have no answer for. Sorry, like that's not disrespectful to anybody that
Leaky.
like. There's just no. I don't think there's an answer for Juzang. I think he's
Leaky.
a guy that will be a bad matchup for Carolina. That's
Leaky
fine.
Black.
Leaky Black is fine. I'm sorry, but I'm taking.
I mean,
Juzang
if
in that matchup.
I'm just let me be clear here for a second. If we're talking the defense, you're talking about somebody that's defensively going to hold Johnny Juzang in check.
Yeah.
Leaky Black held Paolo Banchero in check twice.
That's fine. I understand.
Talking about one of the top 4 prospects in the
country. I get it.
Okay, just making that clear.
Let's do this. So we both had. Oh gosh, no. You have Carolina in the Elite Eight. I have UCLA. I guess at this point
I've got Purdue, Kentucky. You have Virginia Tech, Kentucky.
Correct.
Cats.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So we have an Elite Eight of on my side UCLA.
Kentucky is a more consistent team than Purdue. Honestly, at their best, they might just be a better team than Purdue. So.
Cats. Oh, they are. There's no if or what. Like they are. They're one of the people don't realize like they're a 2 seed and it feels low a little bit. Like they in terms of just like what they are for people's perception. Yeah. Kentucky's really good. Like and by the way, this is the same Kentucky team who all year I was like Tennessee's the best team in the SEC. I said it at the beginning of the year. I said it in the middle of the year. I said it in text threads all year. I was super high on Tennessee and I was very clear that Kentucky's still obviously a really good team. And here they are a 2 seed. And they lost to Tennessee, and they're still better in my opinion. Like it's in terms of balanced offense and defense. Like they're a great team. They have a couple of guys that I did not think Oscar Shibwe English was going to do that well coming into the year, and he's obviously I think he's a Wooden All-American finalist. So, and then obviously Ty Washington, I'm very high on coming into next year for the draft. So, you have the Wildcats playing Carolina. I have the Wildcats playing the Bruins. Where are we in the Final Four?
Unfortunately, for me in Tar Heel Nation, this is where UNC comes to a halt.
That's okay.
UNC played Kentucky early in the season and got run out of the building. I don't think that was just a bad night for Carolina. I think it was an instance of this Kentucky team is just
It was early, though. We got to remember it was early.
It was.
It was.
Wasn't that early. And we're talking mid-December, but
I'll quickly comment on your matchup only because it's not mine, obviously. Very impressive run for first-year Hubert Davis. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you make the Elite Eight, like, that's Carolina level. Like, that's a big deal. Dean Smith, Roy Williams, get it, right?
Well, this is the best team I think UNC has had since the Toby White, Cameron Johnson, Luke May led.
Yeah, since Roy's title team. Yeah.
No, not since Roy's title team. That was 2 years after Roy's title team. Is the freshman Kobe White, senior Cameron Johnson, senior Luke May.
Okay.
A UNC team that went to the Sweet 16 against Auburn, and unfortunately, all of the players got the flu and were throwing up in the locker room in between playing halves. They didn't win the game. Shocker. Yeah, it's an Elite Eight exit for UNC. Tar Heel Nation will be riding on cloud 9 this year. So yeah,
they should be anyway, even if they lose to Baylor.
Yeah, still an improvement over the past 2 seasons. So, like furthest advancement wise,
UCLA, Kentucky, for me.
Cats.
Unfortunately for me and Bruins Nation. To quote Josh Gump, unfortunately for me and Bruin Nation, the Wildcats will be in the Final Four, and I'll tell you why. if it comes down to talent, which by the way, Kentucky's more talented, duh. Coach Cal's a better coach right now, so that's no disrespect to Mick Cronin.
Mm.
Kentucky's in the Final Four.
I mean, Calipari is a Hall of Fame coach.
All right, we have made it now. It feels like we've done this for a long time, but we've made it to the Arizona, and we're going to hopefully fly through this one a little bit because people really want to hear the Sweet 16, Elite Eights, etc. So and there's less teams, by the way, in this bracket. The next two that I have less thoughts about than most. Let's go with Arizona is playing, or sorry, we got to do the back me up. 16 seed here, the play-in tournament, whatever. Wright State plays, by the way, and I do want to talk about this. Wright State is playing the national leading scoring player in Bryant. I don't have his name in front of me, unfortunately. But the leading scorer in the nation, who, by the way, gives middle fingers to people on the front row of these games. Like, he is just doesn't care about anything. And Bryant just goes stupid. I think only for that reason, because they have the nation's leading scorer. I think they beat Wright State and they play Arizona. Any thoughts on Bryant? Yeah.
Who cares? Give me the Cats.
All right. Wildcats.
I hope that there is not a brawl in the stands like there was in the Northeastern Conference Championship game between Bryant and Wagner. That's what I'll say.
I do think it's going to be fun to watch Bryant play Arizona, though, because this is going to be wild. All right.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. I feel like I very much have to tune in now.
Did I get the Bryant has the guy with the leading score? Am I like? Did I get that backwards or?
No, I think you're right.
It is okay. He did. All right, that is all right. Seton Hall, TCU. I'll make this quick. TCU is a defensive nightmare for anyone. That's the only reason they're in this tournament in a really good conference. I have them beating Seton Hall because I'll be honest with you, I don't think I watched a single Seton Hall game this year.
Seton Hall is a really strong front court team, and I went back and forth on this. And frankly, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about Seton Hall. I know that most of the advanced metrics that I used I don't always rely on the stats when I'm doing this. Clearly, I picked UNC to make it to the Elite Eight. All the advanced stats make me want to lean towards Seton Hall, and so I went Seton Hall.
That's fine. I could care less. I like their depth, but TCU is a worst-case scenario 8-9 matchup for them, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The battered and bruised, we're going to call them, Houston Cougars. For those that might not know, their top two players are currently out and injured and coming back soon. So it's just this plethora of hospital beds for Houston versus the public leading and betting favorite that Vegas has everything on UAB right now. Like, people are just swarming UAB. 5-12. Who do you have?
Cougs by 30.
I have the Cougars by whoever cares. I have the Cougars because UAB, as much as their offense is high.
Next man up, man. Yeah, they lost their top two players. This Houston team's still nasty.
They're not the Final Four team that you had last year, to be clear.
No, but they ain't far off.
They're not. But UAB is not, offensively aside, like, they are insane offensively. But
the credit to me for picking Houston in the Final Four last year.
Yeah, absolutely. My point being, though, UAB's just their firepower is not going to be enough, and it sounds crazy because that's like a team everyone's riding on because of their firepower. I just don't see them.
And it is like UAB's really good. Like, I don't want to take away from the Blazers in this.
They're not.
They're really good. But it's another situation, like when I'm looking up at like the New Mexico State 12-5 against UConn, it's a really good 12 against a 5 that I actually believe in.
That's right. I knew you would.
And that's just what it comes down to.
I knew you would. That's why I didn't want to talk about it too much, because I knew we would get to Houston further on. There's a couple teams I had a feeling on you, and I was like, I'll feel them out a little bit. The second you're doing this, I was like, that's one of them. I'm just going to skip talking about Houston, at least on my side of things. Illinois, Chattanooga.
Illini
next.
Yep. I don't have anything on Chattanooga. Mox is a great nickname. I'll give you that. Yeah. It's probably one of my favorites in the tournament. I don't know what it is, but it sounds cool. Somebody tweeted us what a mock is, please. If you are listening from Tennessee, Chattanooga.
Actually, we have a friend, two friends from Chattanooga. Ira and his brother from Chattanooga.
And they both went to Tennessee, didn't they?
That's true. To be clear, these guys are Tennessee fans. We'll talk about Tennessee.
Roll balls.
Kofi Coburn, Frazier, and Plummer are going to just tear Chattanooga to pieces. All right. Let's pause for a second before we say anything about this 6-11, because this has to be taken a few minutes here.
Yeah.
Hopefully not a few minutes. The non-Mountain West winning
champion Non-Mountain West champion.
Colorado State, who, by the
Yep.
way, ending last year, we did our NCAA tournament recap, and I looked at the way too early, and I was like, Colorado State's going to be really good next year. They got every senior returning, yada, yada, yada. Okay, they blew my expectations out of the water. Let me just be upfront. That's my thoughts on one side of it. My other side of this, I've been holding this in since Sunday. Why the heck, because this is a clean podcast, is 17-14 Michigan wasn't a first four in team. Should have been a last four out. It should have been the last of the last of the last out. A&M should have been in. Whatever. Who cares? Dayton's apparently the first four in team. Like, why is, and I'm trying to stay clean because this is one of those things. If I got one expletive an episode, this would be where I would use it. Why the blank is Michigan in this place at 11? Not playing in against them. Not playing. Just get 17-14. If you don't have a case, we're moving on. If you do, please let me hear it. I don't.
Not playing in, I don't have a reason for that.
In period.
I think they deserve to be in. Well,
all right, let me hear it.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
No, I don't actually deserve to be in.
Yeah, thank you. Who do you have? Colorado State, yes?
I also want to say Colorado State's ranked way too high.
They are. Another ranking.
They're good, but they're not that good.
They are.
Michigan is going to enter this game as the favorite. As weird as that is. Have you been looking around to see the stuff?
I have.
BPI favorite. Betting favorite. Just frankly, like you run simulations, they're most likely to win. And I think they do. Because, and it's not me believing in Michigan in any way, but you look back at the teams that shouldn't have made the tournament. The way you're upset about Michigan making it right now is how everybody felt about UCLA last year. They made it just because they're the blue blood, like Michigan. They didn't deserve to be in, shouldn't be there. They look bad, quite frankly. And then they won anyway.
Look,
I do not believe in this Colorado State team at all. I'm sorry, Mountain West. I just don't believe in the teams from your conference. Michigan.
I do only because I did all year, and I just don't like it. I think if they drew anybody, this was the team I wanted them to draw, and that's fine because Michigan's terrible. Colorado State for me, Michigan for you. Tennessee versus the shout-out Big South champion Longwood. Was hoping it would be the Fighting Camels of our local Campbell University. Unfortunately for Campbell, barely beating Presbyterian in double overtime, and then to lose to Longwood, no big deal.
Longwood's way better than Campbell.
Longwood's, which is crazy because they've been the bottom tier of that conference for
they have
years. And like Radford, and then like it's just crazy. So Tennessee beats Longwood.
Several years back, I think it was in 2016. I had tickets to the Big South Conference tournament.
Yeah, so did I.
It was hosted at Campbell University.
Yeah, so did I.
And so I watched every game.
Winthrop was nasty.
Longwood played in the first game, like the first round against Presbyterian, won on a buzzer beater.
Yeah.
Got thumped out of the building in the next round. Just show how far Longwood has come.
But yeah, Tennessee wins this game convincingly.
Go Vols!
Best team in the SEC, and I'm sticking.
I like Longwood. I liked it. I like the Big South. It's a soft spot in my heart because of Campbell, like we said.
I think if they draw, by the way, people who this is your homework, Google Campbell University and just take a look at their basketball program. They lost to Duke the year Duke won the '92 championship. Grant Hill and Christian Laettner.
Only NCAA tournament appearance for the Campbell Fighting Camels.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough. So they played Grant Hill and Christian Laettner that year. There's actually a photo of Grant Hill dunking on somebody from Campbell, but it was such a cool photo that like they had to put it in the arena, and it sounds ridiculous, but just it's like a 4,000 seat arena. Shout out to Campbell,
which is bigger than St. Mary's.
I know. We went over this off recording one week. It was nuts. Yeah. Best team in the SEC. Tennessee moves on. Ohio State, Loyola, Chicago. Can I tell you my two things really quickly on that?
Can I tell you what I'm most looking forward to? Sister Jean.
Yeah, great. I'm excited to see it too. Can I say here's I'm glad you said this though, because I'm going to transition from what you said to my point is I'm tired of seeing her. I'm tired of seeing Loyola Chicago. I am. I'm sick of it. Everyone's like, they're the team. Duh, they've done it. I get it. I'm just sick of it. Here's the problem, though. Ohio State relies way too much on E.J. Liddell, and I think Loyola wins this game, and I hate myself for it.
Give me the Ramblers.
I hate it. I love guys, okay, listeners, I am marrying into an Ohio State family, but they rely every single thing on EJ Liddell. He is their
Loyola.
leading points. He's their leading points, rebounds, and steals leader, EJ Liddell. And he's their second leading block leader. EJ Liddell does way too much for this Ohio State team. If they make it past this game, if Loyola doesn't suffocate them to death and tire them out, they're going to tire them out the next round. Ohio State's going to be so tired from playing through one guy. It's just going to. I'm sorry. I hate it. I'm sorry, fam. Villanova and the Fighting Blue Hens. And you're probably really proud of me because the mascots are my weak spot in some of these small teams. And I got the Fighting Blue Hens of Delaware, who, by the way,
their logo is a blue hen, so that is
that's
helpful.
fine. But it's still cool, and it's really like it's intimidating looking. And I believe they have 2 NFL quarterbacks that came from there. I think they have Joe Flacco, and they have another.
Yeah, something stupid like that. Yeah.
Someone else in there somewhere. But unfortunately, this isn't a football school. This is a basketball tournament. So
Cats.
Wildcats. Wildcats.
Just gonna keep using that.
Yeah, Wildcats beat the
Cats.
Blue Hens. Looks like we're gonna flip back up to Arizona TCU. That's a 1-9 or Arizona and Seton Hall since you barely went that way. Obviously, I think yeah, go ahead, do it.
Cats.
Every time I see it coming, I'm just gonna stop talking. There's a couple times you'll get to do that today too, which is funny.
Yeah. It's a lot of Wildcats in this tournament, man. People said with Arizona and Villanova being the 1-2, the South needs to be renamed the Wildcat region. I think you also got Houston in there, which is the Cougars, which are Wildcats. I mean, it's just kind of right there.
All right.
It's true.
We both have Houston, Illinois, the Cougars, the Cats, the Wildcat, whatever the heck they're called, against the Fighting Illini. Another cool name. Where are you leaning this way?
Cougs.
This is where I figured we would disagree.
This Illinois team isn't what it was with Io DeSoto, and
this Illinois team is still really good, though. That's why, and I think they can beat a battered Houston because if UAB gives them a fight, Houston's already injured. They're going to be battle tested. But I think
what I will say,
their 3 best players are better than Houston's 3 best players because of health right now. That's the only reason I'm taking them. To be clear,
the Gonzaga Bulldogs are the number 1 team in BPI. Trevor, who's number 2?
The Houston Cougars. I know. Yeah. I get it. I'm all there. I get
it. Insane, right?
I'm willing to lose on Houston this year because I lost on them last year. I'm willing to lose on them again because
I didn't expect to be on the Houston train until I started doing some research this year, and my goodness.
That's fine. The injuries scare me, but Illinois' front court, who is just way better than everyone else's front court, also scares me. Colorado State, Tennessee. Where are you leaning? Obviously, you have Michigan. I don't think Michigan beats Tennessee either, so I guess we're both with
the yeah, shout out to our friends from Tennessee. We're not memeing on them this time. I've got the Vols on to the Sweet 16.
I had them on the Sweet 16 last year, and then they proceeded to lose to.
I didn't. I did not believe it last year.
Yeah, so I'm obviously you. I don't.
I do this year
again.
Go Vols! They'll make it the Sweet 16.
Yeah, this best team in the SEC train is not stopping. From
enjoy it.
From my
enjoy
side.
it, Tennessee fans. You're gonna have a really good weekend. Next weekend, the looming matchup. You might not have a great weekend the next time around.
Before we get to that, actually, no, yeah. Villanova, Loyola, Chicago. You have Nova, obviously, based on your thoughts just now.
Cats.
Yeah, I forgot that time. So currently we have 2 Cats and a Illini and a Volunteer. I love college.
I've got the Cougars and Volunteers.
Oh, who cares? It doesn't matter. We have a Volunteer, a Cougar, and 2 Wildcats. I have 2 Wildcats.
I have 3 Wildcats because Cougars are Wildcats.
Oh, whatever. All right. Arizona, Illinois. Let's talk about this because I know in Arizona, Houston, for you, whatever. We both all year were not high on Arizona. Benedict Mathurin, I am completely come back around on him a little bit. Like, this team is a lot better than I realized. Obviously, they kind of rode the top 5 all year and just kind of like were sneaky good for most people. Obviously, they play really late at night for a lot of people who didn't watch them. But I think this is where they go down. I think Illinois' front court is way too good. I think Kofi Cockburn just tears Arizona apart. They won't have an answer for Benedict Mathurin, who was insane in the Pac-12 tournament. But I think Illinois wins this game.
I don't have Illinois winning.
Obviously.
Because they're not in it. However, we're not off in that we think Arizona's going to lose. And this isn't me a riding Houston thing as much as it is this Arizona team's really young.
Very.
They've had a great season, but
very.
Their loss at Colorado is frankly embarrassing.
You're going to have those, though. Like, I get it.
Yeah, but it was bad. And
bad. Colorado, by the way, who was
for a number 2 overall seed, like I don't feel good about that from Zona.
Yeah, I like the young
And the
piece.
Cougars are very experienced. They have 4 seniors.
So is
And we're
Illinois.
talking about almost like all freshmen in the Arizona lineup.
We're on the same page there because either way, it's an experienced team against Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have Illinois because of the same thing. Like you have Houston, experienced team. It's the same thing. Whoever makes it, who cares? That one of these two teams will play Arizona and beat them. I fully
Mm-hmm.
believe that. I don't think it's Houston at all. I think it's Illinois. But point being is we both have experienced front courts against inexperienced completely Arizona, which is fine. Not a big deal. Arizona could also shock people. A lot of people have them in the Final Four. Public, again, talking about a public team, the public is on Arizona more than I ever thought they were 24 hours before this tournament starts. Technically 48 hours. But all right. Volunteers and say it. Come on, I left you an open gap. Volunteers versus the
Cats.
all right.
I'm going Villanova. But
Are you
caveat,
convinced? Are you convinced?
I am convinced on Villanova
Really?
winning.
Okay. Okay.
Villanova can't do one thing though. They cannot let the game get fast.
Period.
If
They
the
are
game goes fast,
battle tested.
then the Volunteers are going to get going.
They have played
I
the
don't think.
hardest
I think
schedule
they'll
this year.
stifle. They'll confuse Tennessee. Tennessee will be disjointed and won't get going. And I think Villanova. But that's how. If you're Tennessee, how you're going to win it? You got to get moving.
Which they do.
Mm-hmm.
They do. That's how they won the SEC tournament. They just ran teams off the floor multiple times.
They didn't run into teams that, frankly, in the SEC, there's a lot of running in the SEC. There aren't many
There
teams
is.
that do try to stop ball like in other conferences. Big 12, you got a lot of teams that stop ball. In the ACC, you've got some of it. In the Big East, you got some of it. There aren't teams in the SEC that really stop ball like that. Villanova does. Mm-hmm. We'll see.
I agree with you on the fast part. They are battle tested. They have the hardest strength of schedule this year. I got on the train that left Knoxville about 3.5 months ago. I got on that train. There was a train. I had a ticket. I got on the train in Knoxville and went all
So it
around
was
the
just
SEC.
circling Knoxville for like
It was
past 3 months.
whatever. It went around the SEC. It went around the Southeast.
Mm-hmm.
Went up to Kentucky a few times. Took care of business. Came back down. Came back. Went down to Tampa. Took care of business in Tampa. And it's now going to take care of business against Villanova. This train is still rolling for me. The Volunteers move on. I think they play Illinois in the Elite Eight.
So we have completely different matchups because you
Yep.
have
Illinois,
Tennessee, and I have Houston, Villanova. So give me your, because these aren't going to relate at all. So
That's fine. I had a feeling that at some point we would elevator pitch each other on a matchup because, and I'm surprised it took this long, by the way.
mm-hmm.
I think next bracket it's going to be more often, unfortunately. So, our next region. The train joke's old, but like my pick still stands. Tennessee's in the Final Four. Go Vols. I was high on them last year. Didn't think they would lose to Cade Cunningham, even though he's really good. I think they are able to match up with Illinois really well. Talk about experience. Tennessee's got a lot of experience. Kennedy Chandler's really good, really fast, makes great decisions with the ball right now. I think the Volunteers take care of Illinois in a very, very, very close game that maybe ends up scoring more than 100 points if we're lucky. Like 102, 103.
I'll give you one guess what I'm about to say.
What do you have to be clear so people are on the same page? Because I believe you have Villanova.
Houston against Villanova.
So you have a Wildcat and a kind of Wildcat.
Cats.
Well, that doesn't narrow it down. What?
Yes, it does. The one's actually the Wildcats. Villanova.
Villanova.
Train stops for Houston this time. Another impressive showing. They're not going to win the national title. Villanova on to the Final Four.
Villanova is a really smart team.
Mm-hmm.
And you have them playing who again? Just to be clear, you have them
Houston.
Right? Two really smart teams, like two teams that have a really, really high level of basketball IQ, and I think Villanova takes care of business as well in that matchup if that's the case. It was hard picking against Villanova. I think Tennessee's the team to do it in this bracket, though. If it's not, then it is Illinois. So, like, if Illinois plays Villanova, I think either of them can beat Villanova. I would have picked either of them. But yes, we disagree there. So I have Tennessee, and you have Villanova in the Final Four. Let's move on to the Midwest.
So first, we're looking at the first 4 matchup: Texas Southern and Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Trevor, what are their mascot names? I don't even know.
Okay, yeah.
I think Corpus Christi's the Waves or something like that.
Oh, no, for a split second, the CC, I definitely thought they were community college on Selection Sunday. I actually thought about it. I was like, What? Oh wait, okay, sorry. I had to like forget that Corpus Christi was in Texas for a second. I don't care. I think Texas Southern wins, but I don't care.
Rock Chalk Jayhawk. So yeah,
Cats. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Rock Chalk Jayhawk right under the rafters. So not gonna matter. Although shout out to Texas Southern and Texas A&M Corpus Christi. They get the honor and privilege. They're the first game in the NCAA tournament this year, tipping off at like I think 6:10 tomorrow or something like that. So
Yeah.
shout out to them. They're the very first team, very first game of the tournament.
San Diego State and Creighton. This one has a soft spot / sore spot for me. I think the Blue Jays are battle tested in a really good Big East.
They
But
had
San
a
Diego
great
State,
Big East tournament.
they did. They did. However, though, can I ask you a ranking question? Who is second best defensive team in Ken Palm?
Who's first? Is it? It's Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Is it not St. Mary's?
Nope. It's San Diego State, which is why I have San Diego State beating Creighton. I don't care what the Creighton Blue Jays do. I think defensively, you're talking about defensive teams win championships. I'm not saying San Diego State's won a championship, but I'm saying they're at least beating Creighton because they're the second best defensive team. They hold their opponents. Let me pull the stat up. I'm going to go ahead and pull it out now because I may not use it again. They are the second best defense in the country based on efficiency. They are second in opponent points per game with 58%, and they hold their opponents to 38% from the field and 30% from three. That is ridiculous.
You know who else is a great defensive team high up in the country? Creighton Blue Jays.
Creighton. I get it. This game, seriously, I mean,
I'm staying consistent. I don't believe in the Mountain West. I do believe in the Big East, and I'm taking Creighton.
You're a conference homer. I like it. That's what makes this podcast fun.
I mean, like sometimes it's just like it's a lot of what looking in this tournament is like. You're looking at it and you're like, okay, all these teams have good records. Which conference do you believe in? Which one do you think was actually the right level of competition?
Understandable. I get it.
Creighton was impressive this past week. They changed. I probably wouldn't have thought this way last week, but they've changed my mind over the past few days.
Speaking of conference discrepancies, Iowa and Richmond. Richmond probably the worst 12 seed in this tournament, even though they won the A10.
Richmond, the team that knocked Dayton out of the tournament. Dayton was the first number one of the first four out. Richmond knocked them out in the last second of the last day by beating Davidson.
I heard a lot on the broadcast, though. A lot of people were shocked that Dayton was the first team of the first four out. Like, I was really surprised. I really was, too.
I saw people joking that the reason was they didn't want Dayton to have a home game for the first four.
Who cares? I think the last two Super Bowls have had home games. Let's be real.
That's obviously a joke. That was not the reason that Dayton was left out.
Oh, I get it. Here's the thing, though. Iowa, talking about like the Virginia Tech hot streak thing, like everyone, the entire country was watching an hour before Selection Sunday. They were watching that conference tournament when Iowa just made Purdue look silly. And Keegan Murray is unbelievable. Iowa beats Richmond convincingly.
Oh, yeah. By a bunch.
All right. 4-13, you have Providence, who we've been a little bullish on in terms of being very lucky. The stats back it up. Ken Palm has them as the luckiest team by a large margin. They lost a little bit of their luck, but they still came into this tournament as a 4 seed. And I'm going to ride with the Jim Maisano pick in South Dakota State because the Jackrabbits are good. They're really good. They're like Wyoming, but like better in terms of three-point shooting. They just do the same things Wyoming does. They play really fast defense. They play really, really up-tempo offense on the break. And they just hit threes right now at an unbelievable clip, which, by the way, haven't lost in a month and a half. So,
give me the Jackrabbits running fast.
Again, Vegas and America is
when this matchup was revealed. I went Jackrabbits. I think Providence is losing. I don't believe in Providence. They lost to the Creighton team I was just talking about.
Well, this is like the one waiver of your Big East like love because it's like this team is just built to beat them. Period.
Yeah.
But that's fine because like at the end of the day,
it's like it's also the 13 that you didn't want to get because I don't feel this way about Chattanooga, Akron, or I would feel that way about Vermont. But like if it was Akron or Chattanooga we're talking about here, I'll take Providence, but I'm not taking them against South Dakota State.
Vermont or South Dakota State, I take them against Providence. Yeah. I also am not full. I do, like I said, I hate the public thing. I hate that the public, anytime the public gets high on a team, it's pretty convincing that they disappoint. And South Dakota State is very high in the public eye right now, unfortunately. But they also, and I'm also not fooled by the fact they haven't lost in a long time. Their conference is, let's just be honest, buns. And they just, that's fine. But they are a good team. They would be a middle team in some of these bigger conferences this year at least. Can we just skip this next one? Like, can we just skip LSU and Iowa State? I don't care. Like, both of them suck. Like both of them suck so bad. The only hope if you're LSU is that you realize this is the last time they'll be playing an NCAA tournament game for basically 6 years. This is Josh. Seriously, this might be the
What's
last time
funny
they
about
play it.
this? This is here are the conference records. LSU in the SEC 9-9. Iowa State in the Big 12 7-11.
Terrible, and they're both
NCAA
in.
tournament teams.
This is the other example I told you of getting in by osmosis. Iowa State
Mm-hmm.
won a couple of games, and they just got in because of osmosis. No, I have Iowa State only because they're really good defensively and shoot the three well. LSU has to play this game really hard because this is the last time they're going to play an NCAA tournament game for probably 5 years, and this is a Tari Eason proving them.
I don't think that'll happen. But I
Could be.
think the Will Wadeless Tigers squeak one out here.
I don't. You lose your head coach, you know there's impending doom. Tari Easton's got to play out of his mind. Like I said, play himself into a higher draft pick here. If they make a run slightly, I think that's great for him. But no, Iowa State. I don't care who wins. To be clear with you, could care less if you picked LSU here. Both these teams suck. That's how I feel. Let's go with Wisconsin and the toothpaste. I'm
Put
sorry.
some respect on Colgate's name.
I know. I'm sorry.
Because I'm not about to. I'm going with the Badgers.
You're like, nope. All right, cool. Pac-12. We have USC playing.
To their credit, I'm just going to cite Jay Billis. Said if you have to, or it might not be Jay Billis, it might have just been another ESPN writer. If you were dead set on picking a 14 seed to beat a 3, then pick Colgate.
You absolutely should be. There should be one that is convincing to you, and Colgate.
Because it won't be Longwood, Yale, or Montana State. So if you feel like you got to pick a 14, pick Colgate. But
I did. Late Sunday night, I had Colgate, and then I was like, they don't have anybody to stop Johnny Davis, which is why I think they move on. Wisconsin, I think, beats Colgate. USC in the Pac-12 playing Miami. Before we say anything else, Miami had me convinced about a month and a half ago that they were a 6 seed, and then they proceeded to completely tailspin. Yep. They did beat Duke at Duke this year, I believe, as well as a couple other convincing games. I believe they beat Carolina by like 30 or something like that.
Something like that.
But it's a Miami team that, and I have a friend, shout out to Marcel, who's a diehard Miami everything. So him and I argue about the Patriots and Dolphins all the time, but I'm not going to argue that the Hurricanes, I think, are a better team than USC this year. I think you talking about senior experience guard play. This is a team that can do it. This is a team that can beat USC. I thought this is not the same USC team last year, obviously, because they didn't have Evan Mobley. Duh. But I think Miami wins this game.
They do have Isaiah Mobley, but
yeah. Right. Sorry,
I'm going with the Hurricanes.
Better schedule, and I hate to say that because the Pac-12 is not bad. But the Pac-12
had 3 really good teams, and the rest was just awful.
And then USC, and then everyone else. Period. That's literally what that conference was.
Miami.
All right, and then Auburn and Jacksonville State, who, by the way, for those that might not know, this should be Bellarmine. I don't know what the Bellarmine mascot is, but this should be Bellarmine. Knight. Great. Knights. No. So this should be Bellarmine, who, by the way, they should get rid of the stupid you have to be in the tournament or in Division I for 4 years to make the tournament thing.
Transition period. Yeah.
It's stupid. Get rid of it. You want this NIL thing. You want this. You want that. Like, you want all this cool college basketball stuff. Get rid of that stupid rule. Bellarmine won their conference in their 2nd year and by the way, what conference are they in? I actually don't know. It's okay. Don't worry about it. The third place team. The third place team made it in. Which, by the way, why didn't the runner-up team make it again? Were they under that same?
So Jacksonville State was the regular season champion. So because it came down to Bellarmine was playing Jacksonville in the conference championship game. So the 2 scenarios were Jacksonville beats Bellarmine and gets the automatic bid, or Bellarmine beats Jacksonville, which means regular season conference champion Jacksonville State gets the bid.
Instead of the team, because the team losing doesn't matter, even though that doesn't make it. Let the team who made it to the, I guess, I don't know.
But to the credit, Jacksonville State is the conference champion in the regular season. So,
but they didn't make it to the conference final. It's that weird. Great. Do you agree with that, or you disagree?
That part, I'm fine with that being the way they do that. That's
a cool decider.
I think Bellarmine should be in. I think this should be Bellarmine.
Not that they beat Auburn by any means.
But
let's move on.
I'm picking Auburn. But what I want to talk about is Auburn versus Jacksonville State is an obscure matchup of former Tar Heel big men. Because Auburn, the well-documented Walker Kessler transfer situation there.
Well-documented,
but also I believe 6 or 7 years removed from his freshman year Brandon Huffman,
Yeah,
who I
that
think,
name.
yeah, I'm almost 24. I think Brandon Huffman was a freshman at Carolina when I was a freshman at Carolina. He's
Nice.
playing for Jacksonville State after transferring and having to sit out a year and yada yada.
Wow, he was before that. That's right. And then the
Yeah.
transition of that. Wow. He's like a
Um,
super senior, super
so
senior.
Brandon Huffman,
All right. Hey, he made it in
uh,
the tournament. That's
playing with
insane.
Jacksonville State against
Left.
Walker Kessler and Auburn, and I'm excited to see Brandon play.
I mean, at the end of the day, he left North Carolina and somehow made the tournament at Jacksonville State with
Yeah,
the third best team in
good for
that
him.
conference, which is just weird. Cool. The
Hey,
Tigers
most
move on.
experience. I guarantee most experience in the NCAA tournament of anybody on that squad.
I think he might be the most experienced guy in the whole tournament period if he's that old. I mean, good grief. He's a super senior. All right,
Yeah,
let's roll
super
back up to
duper.
the top. Kansas and San Diego State for me. Kansas and Creighton for you. Go right ahead, my friend.
Rock chalk Jayhawk. All chalk for me. Kansas over Creighton. I'm taking O'Shea Agbaji. We're rolling.
Uh, how do I put this?
Trevor,
Yeah,
if
it
I
was
I'm
kind of a
just
meme.
being a good friend to you and
Nope.
telling you
Can I just
you
tell you
made
this?
this mistake before and you hurt yourself.
It was
Don't let the Aztecs walk you down a bad line again. Okay, now go ahead.
so I got on that train in Knoxville, but then it took me to San Diego about a month ago. I got
Long
on the
train
one.
ride.
I got on that. It took me about a month to get there. I got, I got on the San Diego train about mid to early February, and then I realized about a day ago, holy crap, they're a team. They're the best matchup to beat Kansas in this entire side of the bracket on top there. Um, the Aztec trade is going to keep rolling. I have Kansas losing in the round of 32. It's not a meme anymore. If San Diego State wasn't a top 10 defensive team, they're at number 2. This would probably be Kansas pick for me here. But things are getting weird in the Midwest region, and San Diego State is going to knock off Kansas. I am saying that with confidence. Rock chalk
Just
Jayhawk, baby.
disappointed. I'm just disappointed. Okay. Iowa and South Dakota State.
I thought really hard about this one. I know you did too. I can tell.
A little bit, but not really. Hawkeyes for me.
I was way too hot. If they didn't win their conference tournament, I pick San Diego State here. That's literally the difference for me. If they weren't this hot, winning their conference tournament, San Diego State can outshoot them.
South Dakota State.
Problem is, did I say San Diego State again?
You keep saying San Diego
I
State.
got those mixed up with Jim too, which was hilarious. So no, I think they can beat Iowa if they outshoot them, but obviously you have to defend Keegan Murray, which I don't think they can do. South Dakota State also is just they're not a great defensive team anyway, so this would have been where they end up.
Mm-hmm.
They lose to Iowa as well for me. Let's roll down to
Got
apparently another
Wisconsin against
Iowa.
LSU. You've got Wisconsin and Iowa State. Doesn't matter. Probably not. Badgers.
Probably not. Which is crazy, by the way. I'm not high on the Badgers at all, but they just got a good draw here. The Colgate
Mm-hmm.
thing is like the best of the 14, but not that great. LSU Iowa State could literally be either one of them. It doesn't matter. It
Neither are that good.
Wisconsin's going to beat whoever they play, which is crazy because like I'm not like I said that high on Wisconsin. Miami Auburn for me. I believe we actually agreed on Miami. I was really surprised by
Yeah.
that.
Auburn's pure talent overwhelms Miami by a lot. So
Miami plays up though. That's the only thing that's gonna. This game is
they
gonna be
do.
another. This is gonna be the another one I told you where I'll watch and I'll be
Auburn
really nervous
team's
towards
real
the end.
talented.
They are, but that's the thing with Miami. They don't have a big. Miami doesn't like Miami's completely guard centric, and that is where I end with the Hurricanes only because of that. It's it's the part where I'm like, well, they play up, but like they can't defend the two best guys on Auburn. That's where it ends. So, all right. Looks like in the Sweet 16 we have. Well, I have the Aztecs of San Diego State and the Hawkeyes of Iowa, and you have the Kansas and Iowa. You rock chalk again. I know it. You
Yeah,
are
yeah, I am. Like, I don't
100%.
understand why that's a bold statement.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. I I had a feeling that
Jayhawks.
I thought you might have more on that because Iowa was a good test for them. Maybe not. I don't
Oh,
know.
it's a good test. Kansas is very, very good.
Can I make another thing too, though, with the Iowa matchup or the San? Because they both are terrible matchups for Kansas. Iowa is, San Diego State is, and then even Auburn, obviously, who we'll talk about in just a second if they play them. I'll tell you why why I'm where I am with Kansas. They've struggled against good defensive teams. I didn't even say that. I brought up the San Diego State number and was like, that's why San Diego State's going to win. But let me read off a couple of losses who are really good defensive teams. All defensive teams, by the way, in the top 30 in KenPom. TCU, Texas Tech, Kentucky, Baylor, and Texas. They lost to all of those teams pretty handedly. So I am a little nervous on the Jayhawks. I agree with you, though. How do you say his name?
Chad Baji.
Thank you. He is really good. He's going to be the difference maker for them. All right. Wisconsin and Auburn, where we both absolutely were going to agree on no matter what. Do you have the Badgers or the Tigers?
I'm rolling with the Badgers because here's the reason: I just can't stand Auburn.
Okay, that's fine. Sometimes you have to just take things out of consideration.
Yep. This is me. I'm bitter. This is me being bitter.
I think they're both two of the worst.
No explanation being given. I don't like Auburn. I don't want them to win, and so I'm not letting myself believe they will.
That's fine. I don't think they go much further either, but I do think they beat Wisconsin solely for the fact that Jabari Smith's better than Johnny Davis and Walker Kessler's better than anybody else on Wisconsin. I think those two guys can win. The problem is their guard play is going to have to really step it up. They're going to need KD Johnson or Wendell Green to just have a tournament, and if they don't, then they're going to scare me. I think Johnny Davis is better than both those guys, so it's going to be a really, really good matchup game across the board, but Auburn, I think, is going to get it done. It's going to be close. I think it's going to be really close, but Auburn's going to get it done. All right.
So Elite Eight, I've got Kansas and Wisconsin, and you have
Iowa and Auburn.
I'll get mine over because it's short and sweet. Rock Chalk Jayhawk on to the Final Four. I understand picking Kansas for the Final Four. It's a unwise decision because everybody's done it for years and it never works out.
Right.
This time I think it will.
This time I think they have one of the hardest runs they've had in 10 years.
Exactly why it's going to happen.
Yeah, right.
The most unlikely.
The most March Madness thing ever. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's end on the Elite Eight with this. I have Iowa and Auburn, and I think the talent of Auburn and Jabari Smith can stop Keegan Murray. I think Iowa, and obviously the public has a lot of people have Iowa making it this far. A lot of people have Iowa beating Kansas. I don't see that, obviously, if they make it there, but yes, I have Auburn beating Iowa, so a 2 seed makes it to the Final Four for me.
Okay, so let's recap the Final Fours on either side. I have Gonzaga, Kentucky, Villanova, and Kansas. Trevor, you have?
Gonzaga, Kentucky, Tennessee, Auburn.
We agree on 2. Let's talk about the matchup we agree on, Bulldogs and Wildcats.
I'm just going to be upfront with you. Until about 3 hours ago, I had Kentucky in a close game. And I still feel like that could probably happen.
Oh, we're at the point where all bets are off here.
However, I'm going to kick myself in the head. I'll literally record myself doing it. I'll try my best. I'll find a way to kick myself in the head. If Kentucky beats Gonzaga in a close game or convincingly, however, I'm going to be really mad at myself because I really do think Kentucky can do it. I also think Kentucky can win the national title. Like, point blank, I'll have probably 6 other brackets out of my 25 ESPN. I'll probably have a couple CBS ones in a bracket pool I'm in. I'll probably have Kentucky winning multiple of them. However, if this is Gonzaga's year, this is it. Like, this is where they're going to have to get this done. You're not going to get a Holmgren level player again. Like, you might, but he's just nuts, and this has got to be the year.
He's a unicorn.
I think Kentucky is a team that they are afraid. They have to hope that UCLA makes it. They have to hope that North Carolina makes it. They have to hope that that's actually about it. Purdue, maybe. Baylor, whatever. They have to hope whoever gets it. But Kentucky, I think it's really close. I'm not surprised if this game is a buzzer beater by one of the Gonzaga players, but I have Gonzaga beating Kentucky.
This Kentucky team doesn't play the only way that we know to beat Gonzaga, which is to frustrate them defensively, slow them down, yada, yada. This Gonzaga team just feels like a steamroll. It just feels like a tank that just is slowly creeping forward and crushing everything in its path. Bulldogs.
On the flip side, let's go with yours first because mine takes some explanation.
Villanova and Kansas.
Shocker. That two big teams.
Yeah.
You went a lot
Looking
more
at
shocked
this,
this year
they're
than I
very
thought.
evenly matched teams. Villanova, frankly, that they are so close together and they're so good. And I think they both could come out on this game. I think Villanova just does the fundamental things just a little bit better. They make all their free throws. They play solid defense. Jay Wright runs a tight ship in Villanova's program, and I think they're able to crack down to what needs to get done. They've also, frankly, when it comes to getting to these Final Four games and winning these Final Four games, Jay Wright has done that more consistently than Bill Self has. So we're
Recently,
looking at the coaching side of it. I'm going to
yeah,
go with Jay Wright.
recently more than anybody. I don't agree that
Yeah.
they're that close. I think Villanova's better than
We're talking a
Kansas.
team that's been to the national title twice in the last 5 or 6 years. So.
Yeah, which is great. I don't agree with you that they're close. I think Kansas is a great, talented team, but I think Villanova, in terms of how they win this game, is a better team. Obviously, it could be a close game. I think Villanova's better. However, Kansas can play fast if they need to, and Villanova, that's their one. Like if they let that get out of hand, they're in trouble. And I don't either one of them. Obviously, I don't have their. That's not the point. But I would lean Villanova as well. But I think it's tight there. It's tight. Don't get me wrong. So again, to recap, got on this train in Knoxville. It took me to San Diego for a little while. It brought me back to Knoxville after being in Tampa. We had a couple of stops all over the country, right? One of those stops we made down to Auburn, Alabama. And somehow I have found myself in a predicament where all year I'm like, Tennessee is the best team in the SEC. And I believed that, and I believed that, and I believed that. And here we are in the Final Four. And they're pitted up against an Auburn team that a lot of people, other than me, think is the best team in the SEC. Can I tell you how many times I went back and forth today? Probably 45.
Yeah.
And for the sheer sake of Kennedy Chandler is not that much better than the two guards. He's good. He's not that much better than the two guards on Auburn. I think Jabari Smith is going to have this insane run. I think Walker Kessler is going to be one of the best players in this tournament. He's going to have an unbelievable game where he stretches out all the defenses. It's going to be a nightmare matchup for the big for Tennessee. For a big in Tennessee that can't move out into the perimeter as well. Kessler can. And I think Auburn gets it done, and I think it's really close. And I'll be honest with you, about 4 minutes ago, I wanted to do Tennessee because of this train. I wanted to so bad. And I'm going to, look, to those of my friends in the text chains that are Tennessee fans and Auburn fans, like, you can laugh at me for going completely on one train, and then they match up against each other in the Final Four. I'm off the train and going the other direction. I think in this game, in this circumstance, Auburn's more talented. Tennessee doesn't have to play Auburn 4 times to get to this point. They have to play them once in the Final Four in my scenario. And I think, unfortunately, based on talent, Auburn's going to get it done. Thoughts, since you didn't
I don't
think
like
I had
Auburn.
Tennessee? Well, what about, okay, but like the Tennessee thing aside, like, or the Auburn thing aside, like Auburn versus Tennessee, who would you take in the Final Four? Who do you actually think? I don't care what the thoughts on Auburn is. Who would you
Tennessee.
actually take?
Legitimately, I think they've been more consistent.
Who? Tennessee, you said?
Yep.
Okay. That's where I wanted to go. But Auburn, the talent is eye opening, right? Like
It
the
is.
talent of Auburn is just, it's too much. All right. We are in the championship game, and we'll go quickly here. We'll go championship, and we'll go the score, and then we will be out of here because it's a really long episode, and we thank everyone for sticking around.
I'm not going to waste time. This year, for the sake of the program, I hope it happens for them. Gonzaga. Oh, yeah. Big shocker. I'm going number 1 overall seed. Yeah, I am. Gonzaga wins the national championship finally.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This is the one year that we should all be scared because this field is upset heavy. And the problem is, I completely agree. That's fine. We should agree. This is the best Gonzaga team ever, probably.
Mhm.
And that's fine. No matter who's playing them, Auburn, Tennessee, Duke, doesn't matter.
Villanova, as I have in this
Villanova,
scenario.
Kansas, it doesn't matter. This Gonzaga team is not going to get up against a Baylor. Look at the other side of the bracket. Kansas is not Baylor last year. Villanova is the closest thing to it, but I think Gonzaga can beat what Villanova is not good at, which is front court. Villanova's a great backcourt team. They're a great defensive team. There's a lot of things they can do well. But I agree with you. Gonzaga is the winner. I do have it. You have to pick a score winner to win one of those ESPN,
I
accurate
had just put
challenges or
in
whatever.
85-78.
Holy cow.
Felt like the right score.
I put 71-66 because I think if Auburn's there, it's a close game. So, with that being said, that concludes our brackets. That was a lot more fun than last year because we went, that felt like a marathon. We don't do these, obviously. We would do it as a live show if it was more appropriate to do so because you have the time to just sit there and do it. But thank you guys for sticking around, seriously. But that was fun. Twitter at 2Pointers, Instagram at the 2Pointers Podcast, as well as TikTok, Facebook.com/2Pointers Podcast. And then on the website, again, I've said it for 2 weeks now. Please bookmark it. Please favorite it. There will be some really cool exclusive content we will be announcing next week when we're not doing a 2-hour tournament preview. Thank you, Josh. Let's get out of here.
I have one question for you before we go.
Go ahead.
Do you think either of us make it through Thursday without our brackets being, I'm not going to say broken, because there's no way that I don't think either of us will make it through Thursday without it being broken, but like just completely Swiss cheesed? Like, is there?
So I'll say this. I am confident because I'm more confident than I was last year. And last year I won our bracket pool. Like, obviously, It was like I had the better I had 90. I was in the 94th percentile, like 700,000 in the entire United States out of the two of us. Like, I was a lot higher than I absolutely. It was the highest.
I will say one
of
you and me is going to be wrong real quickly because the first game is Michigan versus Colorado State. So we're going to find out how things go real fast.
Which is fine. Don't forget to, obviously, in the description of this episode, I forgot to mention bracket challenge. See if you can beat us. Winner gets a TPP shirt that will be shipped to you within a couple weeks after the game concluding, so it can get made and sent out. We'll get address and search size and all that stuff from you after the tournament concludes. And then, of course, you get an appearance on the show to talk about whatever the heck you want, hoops-wise. All right, Josh, let's get out of here.
That being said, this has been the 2Pointers Podcast. I'm Josh.
And once again, at the beginning, I'm excited, and I'm Trevor.
We will see you soon.